welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 252. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Help me, I'm being assimilated by Doomsday. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.
On this episode, we're going to be discussing American Vampire number 13, Superman Batman Annual number 5, and Secret 6 number 32. Plus, we have some interviews from C2E2, from Sequart. Pretty packed episode. We also have a segment where we talk about some of the news coming out about Flashpoint, the teasers coming out about Flashpoint, and we talk about the Eisner nominees from DC, because they have an immense amount of them that were nominated.
Yes.
And we talk about the Eisner Awards in general, and how awards ceremonies kind of affect our choices as far as reading and buying, and that type of thing. So, cool segment about that. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Want to remind everyone to check out the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and Hero Initiative. If you go to ragingbullets.com and click on charities, you can get right to those sites right directly from ragingbullets.com. Also from the show notes every week. It's in our links there. Big fan of both organizations, so please consider supporting them. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Comic Geek Speak who have the CGS Supershow coming up. This is the 2011 Supershow, April 30th to May 1st at the Greater Reading Expo Center. And the show hours are Saturday 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They have a great guest list of creators, so definitely check out their website. It's a great time right now because we're seeing a lot of conventions popping up all over the place, and it's great to have these personal conventions in whatever area you're in. This is a great chance to be a comic fan and to be a part of that whole community aspect of comics. One of the cool things that DC's doing, and I want to shout out DCBService.com for this, DC is doing that cool little thing where they do a pack-in. And in this month's order, they've got the 16 Flashpoint miniseries, and each one's coming with a promo pin, which is really cool for those of you that are into these type of collectibles. I'm a big fan of these because it's a bonus. I'm going to buy the book anyway, but it's cool to get that neat thing with it. And Flashpoint number 2 is also coming with a free Flash ring. Flashpoint number 2 is going for $3.99 regularly, 40% off, only $2.39 at DCB Service. Each of the minis is $2.99 regularly, 40% off, only $1.79. So this is really cool. If you're trying to collect all these pins and you're trying to get it on a budget, you can get them at 40% off, which is going to be a big savings. You know, it's almost like you're paying for like 10 books instead of 16. So it's very cool to have DCB Service offering those discounts. I want to shout out DCBService.com because I know budget's a big issue for all of us right now. I want to shout out the Summit City Comic Con put on by our friends over at DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. It's going to be in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's June 18th, 2011, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Grand Wayne Center, 120 West Jefferson Boulevard, and once again, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And they've got an amazing guest list of creators that are going to be there, so definitely consider supporting our friends over at DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, but checking out their convention. This is their second year of the Summit City Comic Con. Besides SummitCityComicCon.com, you want to check out InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up the first American Vampire hardcover. This collects issues 1 through 5 and follows 2 stories, one written by Scott Snyder and one written by Stephen King, with art by feature superstar Raphael Albuquerque. And if you haven't been picking out this book, we talked on this episode about it. This is 192 pages, $24.99 regularly, 38% off, only $15.49. And this hardcover is a great way to jump on board this series if you haven't been checking it out. So that's InStockTrades.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Just want to remind everyone that these next couple days are going to be the last couple days for our contest, our 5-year anniversary contest. We go to ragingbullets.com, check it out, and we'd love to have you participate.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Jim, American Vampire number 13 just came out. It's the part 1 of Ghost War. And I'm super excited for this because not only are we going to be getting this story in here, but this is the one that's going to lead to a miniseries that further expands the war from a different avenue. So we're going to get to see this war from all over the place. Very interesting. One of the questions that comes up in this is we've got our main character and her husband. And should she or shouldn't she make him a vampire? Should he or shouldn't he want to be one? And it's something both of them struggle with. Because look what it does to her. She gets into these frenzies, and it's something where she's constantly concerned with at what point in time is he going to see me as a monster? Can I do this to him? It would be very tough but then there is going to be a limited lifespan for him, where she's going to be alone afterwards. And do you accept the life that you have now, being the people that you are, or do you risk changing him in your relationship by making him immortal? What do you do? I love that concept of this series. It's something that's been explored with them throughout the first 13 issues. First of all, them getting together, but then as they've continued on. But he is getting older, and his age is starting to be an issue. For himself, with his own insecurities developing from it, and for her as well. And I'm really finding that an intriguing personal exploration with these two characters.
Oh, yeah. Cool vampire stories usually will have somewhere along the lines where they're dealing with this type of topic and this type of just idea. When you have a vampire fall in love with a mortal and vice versa, what happens then? Will they turn? Will they not turn? What's the advantage, the disadvantage? And one of the things I did like about this, where they're exploring it, isn't just the heart-wrenching, the moments where they don't know what to do. It's the kind of why behind it. Because you hit it well with her, where she's thinking, like, I don't want him to see me as a monster.
Yeah.
Now, if he turns this guy, will his perspective of her change as well? He'll be a vampire as well, and maybe when he starts looking in on himself, he'll see the darkness that's inside her, because she's got to fight off some of that darkness, and, when she's feeding, so she doesn't go into the frenzy, so she doesn't become pure animalistic. Once he starts seeing that and feeling and seeing what it's like, he may think, oh my God, she really is a monster. Look what she just did to me. And that could completely turn him the other way. So there's a really heavy risk on her part, and I like how they're showing it, how they're exploring it, and just how they're thinking it. And it's one of those, this is a really, as I said, this is a really cool vampire story where they're not ignoring the classic mythos. They're saying, yeah, it exists, but it doesn't exist with these people. These people are a different evolution path. So they're still having fun with it, still having their creative fun with it, but it's not, kind of just, in the face of traditionalists.
I like that the two of them are stuck with this guilt aspect of thinking about it as well. Because, she feels guilty thinking about it, even considering it, because of what it could do to him, and knowing it from her own personal perspective and what this hunger does to her and what it brings out in her. In his case, he knows that it has to be his choice. She knows that it has to be his choice. Yet she gives him, when he goes overseas, she, said, you've got to take this vial with you. You have to take this, and this is one of those things where, it's non-negotiable in her eyes. Because if you get hurt on the battlefield, I don't know if I could bear to be without you. So it is something that's going to eventually, for the two of them, have to come to a head from both of them, because he's questioning it as well. I mean, they're going to eventually have to make a set decision. I don't know if you ever make a permanent 100% set decision, and sometimes circumstances take that out of your hands. What if he does get severely hurt? What will he do? And there's times where he talks about considering it when, she's a target. He's like, part of me wants you to turn me so you're not fighting this alone. So I can be, your equal. I can be there with you. So it is interesting. And the other risk of them turning him, which is interesting as well, because we talked about how would it change how he sees her. What would the change do to him?
Yeah.
Could he become something that he's not now? I love that. It's very intriguing. I want to compliment this book because in the first part of this issue here, we talk about jump on points. Issue 13 of American Vampire is a great jumping on point. Sweet Tooth does this. I almost said Sweet Point. That's the alternate version, the Flashpoint version of Sweet Tooth.
Oh, okay.
No, Sweet Tooth does this where there's periodically an issue that does a little recap, but it does it from a perspective of a different character. What it's done in the first page of this issue, number 13, this is what we know so far. And it's just a quick little walkthrough of the book. So if you've never read American Vampire before, a lot of times it becomes very daunting to say, okay, there's 13 issues. Can I afford budget-wise to start jumping back and reading 13 issues of a series when I don't know if it's my cup of tea or not. You can pick up issue 13 right here, and it gives you background into Pearl, gives you background into Hank, into Skinner, everything you need to know so far to just, quick little recap, jump on, read this story. If you want to go back then, because you become a big fan of it, which I can't imagine you're not, and read the first 12 issues, you can collect them in trades, you can go back for the singles, or in hardcovers, I should say, because I know that the first hardcover is currently out of this series. So definitely a book that you want to jump on now with issue 13 and make that decision for yourself. Good story right out of the starting gate, though. I like it as a reader. Do you like recaps?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And they do it quick enough here that it's not, hurting, taking away too much from the story. So I'm like, it's a good spot. It's a good deal. And I understand why they're doing it because, one, bring people to speed, but two, it does have some nice little story elements. We got this opening page where they're talking about it, the different pictures of the different main characters. I like that. I like the way it was laid out with the blood. Apparently, it's obviously laid in blood, and so there was some nice artistic moments from there, so I got to enjoy it.
Well, and this deal that they made comes back into it. Was it Hobbs? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah.
So it is giving us, as readers who've been reading the series, some new information, too. That this deal is going to be a major thing going forward that they made. But then we see him out on the battlefield, and I'm like sitting here, I'm like, this is one of those points where I'm like, dude, maybe you should have turned. What do you know what, let me ask you that, seeing as we talk so much about this, what do you think they should do? Should he stay human or should he turn?
I'd say turn. Once you get to that point where I probably would have turned a little while before this, even before going over there, I probably already would have been a vampire. The last big fight that she had where he really couldn't be much of help, that's where I probably would have wanted to be turned. I would have said, okay, you know what? This is it. Let's make this, a permanent commitment for all of eternity. Turn me, and that way, when these guys come back again, when the next time this happens, I'm there side by side with you. And I probably would already be a vampire right now if I was this guy, if I was Hank.
Well, see, and I think we are coming closer and closer to that because he's dealing with a major issue here. Why is he a part of this group hunting the vampires, which is what he's doing there? He's going there on the battlefield to offer his expertise on hunting traditional vampires as a part of all this because they won't let him into the regular forces because of his age and because of his previous injuries. So the only way he's going over there is if he's doing it with this special group. He's making another deal with Hobbs. And that's always a dangerous thing, I think, because Hobbs, I think, is bad news. And he's also made the cardinal mistake that you make in a relationship. You don't lie to your significant other. And he lied to her. There's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a reckoning due to this.
Yeah, if he survives, what he's currently dealing with, as we see the little munchy mouths and the, I'm assuming, really nasty spikes coming at him, if he survives that somehow, she's going to be mad.
Right. A month earlier, they were in Honolulu, Hawaii, and just having this wonderful moment together. But you can tell at this point that this issue of age is becoming something that's between them. They're both having those issues. That's why I'm convinced it's going to come to a head. When you see this moment where the two of them are getting up, it's very quaint, it's very sweet. They left their home, which actually ended up saving the two of them from her old friend in last issue, because they had another vampire that was hunting them. And because the two of them decided to get out and live life together, it saved them from a confrontation with her that we know is coming. I want to see that confrontation. But obviously we're going to see that, I don't think in this arc, we're going to see it in another arc or two down the road, where we'll see that all come to a head. The two of them aren't on the run because they don't know she's following them, right?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, they have no idea. They left to pursue their life, to actually start living instead of hiding, and it bought them some time, but also threw them into this mix. And as we said, I liked how they're looking at this whole with him growing older, and where he initially applied. He wants to he enlisted in the army. He wants to go over there, and no, you can't. And on one hand, you sit there when you got a massive combat situation like this. On one hand, you're like, I want to serve my country. I want to go and fight. But on the other side, you're like, I kind of like to stay here in Hawaii in paradise in the arms of this woman that I love and not have people trying to kill me. There's a tough call. How do you make that pick, and do you feel less of a man for doing that? And there's this whole other complications going on, and I love seeing that in him, especially because it's really getting to him. He's looking for a fight anywhere he gets, and he finds one in a couple of sailors that don't go too well for him.
The female vampire that's hunting the two of them, that's specifically after Pearl, one of her issues is Pearl tried to kill her, and Pearl thinks she's not able to hunt them. Pearl thinks she's, basically off the grid. The deal that Hank makes with Hobbs in the first place put the two of them off the grid, kept them from being on the radar, kept them from being able to be found easily. Now that he's enlisted, and Hobbs makes his point to him saying, through our deal, you were safe. Nobody knew where you were. Now you've gone and enlisted. What are you doing? You're on the record books now. Why are you doing this? Now this forces the other deal. That is another reason why Hank really needs to play ball right now, because unless he's got some backing from somebody like Hobbs, he's put them both in danger. And Pearl could be in danger right now because of what he's done. So this is another double whammy, where, Pearl and him both agreed to do this. So Pearl knows that they're on the radar now. They made that decision together, and I really respect that. So that's not the secret. The secret is that he's working with Hobbs hunting those vampires. Interesting to see how this is all going to play out, because I do think this is going to lead to the confrontation with her female vampire friend, now that he's put them on the grid.
Oh, yeah, definitely lets her find them a little bit easier, but I can't see Pearl staying in Hawaii, personally. I think she's going to find her way overseas somehow, and I'm not sure how that's going to happen. But especially with when jumping to the end there, we see that Skinner Sweet is going over there with them, and he recognized that that Hank lied to her, and he's going over there to make him pay for it. But when she sees that Skinner's in the mix now, I can't see her sitting back and just waiting for it to happen. So I think we're going to see Pearl finding her way over there somehow.
Will she make it on time is the question. Will she be able to? Because obviously her being there, I think, is going to decide whether or not Hank is saved. Well, here's the other problem. What if Skinner turns him?
Yeah.
What if it's not her choice or his choice? What if Skinner turns him? And I'm not saying that I think that that's necessarily going to happen. I think Skinner's going to try to off him. I think, although I don't know that would Skinner necessarily be against what he's doing, even though he lied. Well, Skinner's going to be upset with the deal he made with Hobbs.
Yeah.
Because the deal that he made with Hobbs has revealed their vulnerability. And she doesn't know he did that, does she?
I don't think so. She doesn't know.
He did that on the sly, if I remember correctly, back when it happened. He revealed that let's say it. Regular vampires, the wood is the thing that would take them out. In the case of these American vampires, both Skinner and Pearl, and her friend, the redhead, is it Hattie or Harriet or Hattie?
It's Hattie.
Hattie, okay. In the case of Hattie, all three of them are vulnerable to gold, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Skinner's going to have major issue with that lie. He knows. Is that the secret that he knows?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And I think that's why he's going over there, why he's going overseas to deal with him. But Skinner looks at life a little bit different, and I always question, yes, he's an evil person who's a killer, but he's kind of one of those weird killers that kind of has a code, kind of doesn't, and you never know exactly where he's going to go. Like Pearl's a great example. He could have just been heartless and let her die and done nothing with it. Instead, he turned her, and he made her, a vampire. Now, part of that was, because I think he was curious to see if he could or see what would happen. But also part of it was he recognized that she really got a raw deal from the old school vampires, and he's like, hey, let me show you guys something. Here, bam. So it's a tough call why he did it. Did he do it for good reasons? Did he do it for bad reasons? Did he do a little bit of column A, a little column B? And that's why I always wonder how he's going to play out in this. And I kind of chuckled at the very beginning when he's writing this final letter to Pearl. He's like, they're all dead, even Skinner. I'm like, you can't write off Skinner. Come on, Skinner may appear to be dead, and he may have gone through some horrific stuff. But I got money says Skinner somehow pulls through.
Yeah, well, see, and I don't think either of them are going to have an issue that he's hunting the vampires that are over there, because there's traditional vampires who are enemies of both. Right. So I don't see them having a problem with that. It is going to be the secret that they're going to have a major issue with is that he's revealed their vulnerability, which was a protection they had before. To have that be not knowledge that Hobbs has can't be something that either of them are going to be happy with. Will Pearl accept his explanation that he was doing it to protect her? Because it's really the reason why. Why did he reveal the secret? To protect Pearl. the deal was you leave us alone, keep us under the radar, and you've got this secret. Can Hobbs be trusted to keep Pearl safe? Yeah.
Oh God, no, because he even says Hobbs in one of his commentary where he's talking about the purpose of this organization. Let's be perfectly frank here, is to kill vampires, all of them.
Right.
So the American vampires, including Pearl, has a bullseye on her right now. It's just, when does his organization choose to kill her? When that's the call. It's not if or will he. It's he will try to kill her. It's when he decides to do it. When it's the most efficient for the company. When it's the the best move for them to make. He's dropping her.
You know what the great part is about discussing this book, especially at issue 13? Think of all of the possibilities we've just laid out here that don't need to play off anytime soon. These are all possibilities that can play out in many issues down the road. And this is just with the core set of characters that have been introduced now. Imagine you're introducing more players into the game with more ties to these characters. There's really an unlimited amount of possibilities of this title. That's what I'm digging about it. This world that's been crafted here is very cool, very deep, very rich. This series has a potential to have a great deal of longevity, to be another one of those Vertigo titles that can ultimately continue on accordingly. It's fun. Did you hear the wind blowing there?
Yeah.
I got the window open. It's like 70-something out today, and I don't have an air conditioner in the room, so I clicked open the window because it gets too hot in here with the computer running. It is like, this is one of our first recordings that we're doing, like, basically outdoors, at least on my end. A gorgeous day today in Ohio for April 10th.
Yeah, I'm a little bit scared what's coming. If we got this great, beautiful day today, what's next?
A foot of snow by Friday?
Yeah.
It's not unheard of. Jim, let's talk some Secret Six.
Amen.
Secret Six, number 32, buddy. First of all, I love I've mentioned it many times. The cover artist on Secret Six is just a home run every single time. That just looks wicked and evil. And I can't tell you how many issues of Secret Six where not just the interiors, but the covers. I've said to myself, wow, that would make a cool poster.
Oh, definitely. Definitely just looking, a nice little hellish kind of cover.
Absolutely. Now, here's the funny part. I think the more that this story goes on, I get worried about whether or not we're going to have Ragdoll in the series anymore. Can the team work with him again after this? I don't know.
Yeah, what's going to happen here? And it's the whole... Every time I'm reading this, every time I reread it, I come up with a different idea where I think it's going to go or what could happen, and just going back and rereading from the beginning, this last issue, then this, and going back a couple issues, going back to the Scars Terras. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm right now holding on to the fact that we're not going to lose Ragdoll, that he's right now trying to trick the devil, and he's trying to get both Knockout and the Parademon to come over, and he's trying to figure out a way that I'm holding on to that factor right now, but it doesn't look that way.
So you think this could be one big manipulation by him?
Yes.
And we're going to see just how twisted he is?
Well, it's not even... I'm not thinking twisted. I'm thinking he's kind of playing... he's trying to play the odds, and or even just... He's openly thinking, hey, I'm going to do this favor for my friends. I'm going to do this for my team. I'm going, and it's kind of a nobility type of, ragdoll we're seeing, and it's why I'm like, I don't think it's actually going to happen, but I'm holding on to the fact that he's really, all this is being done just to trick, as I said, to trick the devil. He's going to try to get everything for, get both Parademon and Knockout back into the world, and it's really not, he's not really siding against the Six here.
Even though he doesn't have a soul?
It look like it.
Even though he doesn't have a soul. Because we learned that in this. He doesn't have a soul. Yeah,
see, that's the part that really... because everything I'm thinking is derived from friendship, compassion, and all of that type of qualities, which typically is associated with the soul. So if he doesn't have one, then that kind of throws my argument out the window. But what if he wasn't born with a soul, but he can earn a soul, and he can, through his actions, he could actually, develop one and become a good person and become a person. He could become a real boy. But it's that kind of this is his Geppetto moment, where he's going through his Pinocchio moment, where he's deciding whether he's going to be a person, he's going to be a human, or he's going to be this soulless monster. And this is kind of the giant test, if you will. And that's why, Hell doesn't want him to earn a soul. Hell wants him to remain this soulless monster. If he actually does earn a soul, if he does become, that will give, the forces of good a much stronger edge and or a champion on their side. And it'd be an odd champion in Ragdoll, granted, but maybe that's where this is going. This isn't really about the card. This really isn't about the death thing. It's about Ragdoll, who he's going to be. Will he be the soulless monster? Will he be this real person?
Well, see, here's the funny thing. His idea of being a real boy, which is really twisted, he wants to be the crazy lunatic that he's been. He really resents the fact that he's not right now. He's not our Ragdoll right now. He knows it. And he's got a major, because he references that, how he wishes he could be that character, that person that he's been. But he feels he's lost that.
Yeah, he no longer hears the voices in his head. He no longer just, he's going sane, and it terrifies him that he's going to become sane. And I think that's actually kind of a little neat just idea into the mindset that is Ragdoll, that most people would want sanity, most people would want that, but for him, that's a terrifying factor. And that's part of the thing that it keeps me thinking that this is really just the test of Ragdoll. Mm-hmm. Does, would he embrace this lifestyle? Would he embrace being a normal person? But even a normal person's in quotes, because maybe a normal person is the goofy Ragdoll. Maybe that is, the craziness that is, the crazy wonderfulness that is Ragdoll with the soul.
I don't know. I'm curious to see that too. I like the Secret 666. Imagine drawing that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I'm looking through. The characters all look very unique. Almost 90% of them. I mean, you see a few characters that have like similar traits and qualities, but you could say that's all because they're all these hell-bound demons. But the amount of variety that's presented here on this page is staggering. I'm like, wow, your hands got to hurt after drawing that spread.
Yeah, nice little variations, and that's one of those where you're like, okay, good job, because you can just start panning through the different panels, and even just some of the attention on details. The one dude who's got the collar, the chain collar with the padlock, even, and you start looking at the links of the chain a little bit, kind of dinged up. You got your foot soldiers who are in the armor type, but even the armor is little variations, for the different people. You got a bunch of spikes and some spears and whatnot. So there's a nice variety of just this hellish army coming down upon them.
Is he the way he is right now because he's in hell? Or was it the lie of Scandal that caused him to be here? Like I'm saying, is this quote-unquote sanity because he's in hell? In the 2 hours that he's been there, because Scandal refers to that. You've been gone less than 2 hours. What happened here? And he talks about how they made him as Elvis. They made him their Elvis, I should say. Is the behavior that he's experiencing right now, the fact that we aren't seeing the typical lunatic, the fact he doesn't hear the voices, is it because he's in hell? If he were alive again, would that correct that for him? What do you think?
He said he started seeing and thinking differently when he got back from Skartaris. He even said when he looked in the mirror, and he saw the face, and underneath each mask was the same mask, and he realized, and that's when at that point in time when he started realizing he was going sane. He started looking at, even he mentioned Black Alice, how she was looking to him and she needed him, and there was more responsibility and more needed on his character. And I think that whole thing is what began the process of him defining who he was. It could be them just go, if my crazy theory is right, and he's, earning his soul, that's where I would say he's beginning to earn it.
Now, it's funny. He's starting to earn his soul. Do you think a soul will correct all this for him?
I don't know. That's the whole thing. I don't know. I would say a person, if they were to get their soul, then they would have the potential for nobility. They would have the potential for all these great and wonderful characteristics. But who knows with Ragdoll? Maybe Ragdoll, if he gets it, then he goes back to being who he was. Or it could be the freedom he gets to make the choice as to who he is. I don't know. That's one of the really crazy, wonderful things about this story, that every time we get another piece of the puzzle, it always opens up more questions. The first piece, when we saw that Ragdoll was in hell and what they went to get there, open up questions. Okay, is he there? Is he alive? Is he dead? And now we know that he's not dead, but he's there by choice. And now is he, what's he going, what's his end game? What's his end goal? Is it to actually be this, Prince of Hell, or does he have something else planned? There's a lot of just mysteries keep opening every time you get another piece of the puzzle, and that's what I'm loving about the story, because we get these cool Secret Six moments, but we also get this, okay, what's next? Get ready, hold on, you thought that was something, we got another piece coming for you. Bam!
Is it possible we're not going to get him back?
Oh, definitely is possible. 100%, that's an option that it's always in there. I think, that's one of the strengths of Secret Six, that any one of these characters probably could be, disappear for a while and or get killed off. But, they can always craft new stories around new characters and new members. But Ragdoll is such a pivotal piece of the team that I would find it very difficult to, it would be one of those tough, characters to lose to continue on with the story, but they could do it. We've already seen them introduce other characters into the Six, having a completely different team of Secret Six that still felt like the Secret Six. So it could happen. I personally hope it doesn't, because I love the character, and I'm not even going to say I hope he goes back to being the way he was, because if they're going to explore this new nuances of his character, I'm really curious and fascinated by that as well.
Yes, there's a lot of possibilities here, because I think what makes me wonder that, and it is interesting, is the fact that there are more than 6 members on the team right now.
Yeah.
Between Black Alice and King Shark and Catman's not featured in this picture. I was just doing the numbers. I'm like, well, there's 5 people there plus him. And then I'm like, there's 2 members that we don't even see right now. Like, he really this could be the end for him. Could be. And I'm looking at Parademon, who used to be a member of the team.
Yeah. And if Parademon and Knockout come back with them, then they're increasing their numbers even more. And so who knows where this is going to go. I'm really, it's storytelling that it's, every time the issue ends, I got more questions. I want to see more.
I love the whole bit with Catman and the Demon.
Yeah.
And how he was going to have this confrontation with his father, which was interesting. I started to get the idea when he was running along by himself. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to go back to this pivotal event for him, because it really has led Catman down this dark path. Re-exploring what happened with his dad. So this is a chance for him to have that confrontation. But to see Dad, look what Dad's hugging there.
Hey, he's got the little stuffed tiger, the little stuffed Catman, and I thought that was kind of a neat, oh my God moment, and because you're in hell, so there's going to be the torture, there's going to be this kind of ripping at the soul, and I think that's a great way to really make it hurt, make it stink. Make it sting to Catman, knowing that his father is either remorseful over what he did, and Catman's just really, in a way, just really crossed over the line, really went full on nasty because of these events in his past. So Catman gave up a piece of his code of honor, a code of conduct, because of this man, and now he sees this man just disheveled and broken. So that's a great way to kind of turn the screws into Catman, even, as well as turn it into the father. So I like that, and I'm curious to see where that's going to further go, because we got to get more images of that in the next issue.
Liana, I don't know, are we going to see her die during that bit? And then they have to deal with the fact, do we bring her back? Except I can't see that she'd necessarily, why would she go to hell? So I don't know that. I guess I'm starting to see that her storyline is building towards the next arc, or at least being dealt with in the next arc, versus dealing with it right now, right? Because I don't take her as being necessarily a bad person. Do you?
No, I don't take her as being a bad person, but I don't know where they're going. I don't think they're going to kill her off right now, because I think the guy who's picked her up doesn't want to kill her. He's going to teach her to be a proper lady. So it's going to be some brainwashing. There's going to be some torturing going on. There's going to get some nasty stuff going on. And I don't think that it's going to lead to her death. It's going to either lead to her changing, it's going to lead to Scandal, hunting him down and doing nasty things to him over what he did, her also dealing with some guilt over the whole matter. I think this is going to be the next story arc, or if not the next story arc, maybe two story arcs from now. I'm kind of curious where that's going to go, because it's nice couple-page teasers.
Now, see, Merkel's sanity, if he stays sane, it makes me wonder if we will end up keeping him. Because look what he's done with Knockout. Like, what point in time does he cross a line that's gone too far? Knockout's not my prisoner, she's my fiancé. So at what point in time does he go too far? At what point in time can he not be forgiven, so to speak? Do you think he's hit that point?
Well, here's my the two things that kind of questions that raised out of that was, did he pick Knockout, or was Knockout given to him, is the big question, because he even says earlier in the issue where he was given a mate, given a bride, just for the formalities of it, and so he would stay down there in hell as the prince of hell. So I don't know if he picked her, or if he did pick her, maybe he picked her to pull her out of where she was, or whatever torture she was. And as I said, he's trying to play both sides. Keep Knockout close to him, keep Parademon close to him. Then when he goes, if he can find an opening, he gets out, takes both of them with him. That's why I'm wondering, is there noble purposes behind his actions? Could he actually think about doing that? Is he planning that, or is it again just all some nastiness going on? I don't know. And that's the thing I love about the story, is I don't really know where he's going, what his end game plan is, what the final story is going to tell.
Well, here's the question. Can he, at this point in time, he is dead, right? They stitched him up.
He's alive.
Is he still? So he was still alive. So he doesn't need the card to get out himself.
No. He wished himself down to hell.
Okay.
He didn't actually die. He physically went down to hell, and it was probably because he had the card in his hand, probably because he was so close to death, and there was all that, supernatural mystic mojo going on there. That's how he got down there. But he was alive, and he said they stitched him up, and, they mended his wounds. And so I'm thinking he's still alive, and he's still fine. He's still, physically is himself. It's just this whole mental picture where he is, who he is, and whatnot.
Now, Jeanette. Is Jeanette possibly going to die here? Are her injuries severe enough that they would have to use the card on Jeanette?
Well, the one is upper shoulder. I think she could survive that one. But that one, the one's through a leg, but the one, it's right through kind of lung area. That's some vital. They're getting close to some vital organs on the one. So she's hurting pretty bad. So, but Jeanette is Jeanette, so how much can she take?
Right.
What will kill her? What won't kill her? I'm thinking, because she's got the Banshee power in her, she pulls the stuff out. She goes full on Banshee. That maybe will help her, save her, heal her.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at possibilities on where this could go. I'm trying to see, what were there other reasons for the card to be used than we're considering? I don't know, because next issue is the final part of this arc. I've been dying to see this.
Now, the one character I do not want to pass up, and I think we got to talk about, is Ragdoll's little buddy, Thais, with the guy with the bloody tongues for eyes and for a mouth.
Yeah.
I love this character. I thought that was kind of a cool, just his introduction. He's like, well, sweet Thais, tell us, what is it that brought you here? Well, I was an adulterer. Like, really? That's all? He's like, and a mass murderer, and a wearer of shoes made of human leather, Lord Ragdoll of the Infernal Bend. I also lied about my commitment to recycling.
You know what was great about that? I'm glad you're touching on this. Because of the fact that Merkel's more sane, or sane, as he's ever going to get, he's not providing the humor elements that we're used to with him. He's creepy. Really creepy. And you want to put in those, because this issue's so dark, you want to put in those moments where you can chuckle. And that's where that guy's brilliant. Because he does bring in those laugh moments. Parademon brings in some of that, a little bit more of a lighthearted aspect of it, too. Because you want this to be dark, you want it to be creepy, you want it to be scary, and you want us to think of Merkel that way. Because I'm seeing Ragdoll in this arc in a way that I've never seen him before. I do see him as a lot more creepy than the fun-loving, lunatic that we've seen before. I've always seen him as a depraved lunatic where, he'll cross any horrific line. But there is always, that part where I'm laughing at him, but I shouldn't be. I'm not laughing at him here. And not supposed to be. And that's a brilliant twist, but you do need those, then where do we go for our humor in this? And we're seeing that in other ways. And that character you're mentioning is one where we're starting to see it. And I like the balance.
Now, Bane was an interesting one. When they learned that basically they all have one-way ticket down there, when their time comes, Bane's reaction was really outstanding for me. I love that how he was shocked by this because he's like, I am a righteous man. I'm not like them. I live by a code of honor. And, Ragdoll's right back really quickly. You think that saves you, Mr. Bane? We use men of honor like landfill for our compost heaps. I was like, that is just a neat idea where he's just like completely shocked because, yeah, he kills people, but there's a code of honor behind it. It's not about just, the craziness of, killing people for the fun of it or anything like that. There is this, code that he lives by. And I loved seeing him throw for it. And then even Scandal immediately jumps in there and she's offering him support. I love seeing these two, there's their friendship, their relationship, family, connection. I love that.
I like that bit too when she goes, she's like, I've got to get the card because you don't understand. It's something that hell hates. This whole true love concept, and I will take it from you if I need to. And he comes back and he's like, what army? And I love this whole bit, no army, just friends. And when you see them sitting there, I'm like, you know who's really growing on me in this? King Shark.
Amen.
Oh my gosh, is he a cool character? Which I never thought I would ever say, wow, King Shark's a cool character. This is something I love about books like this. You take characters that before were kind of like, all right, King Shark's kind of a joke, and you turn this into a character who is just awesome. And I'm loving this character. I never thought I would say, wow, I'm following a series that features King Shark, and I want to see him stick.
Well, and if you think about it, if they get rid of Ragdoll, if Ragdoll does stay down here or is changed forever because of this and doesn't want to be around, King Shark could still very easily be a comical aspect and keep that part of, that Ragdoll brings to it. A different level of comedy and a different style, but he does have a couple little one-liners, and there's always been just some usage of him that way. So he could really fill the role. Plus, he is a character that, is pretty cool and starting to, I'm agreeing with you that I'm really digging this guy, especially in the Skartaris story arc where they started showing this other Secret Six team.
Yeah.
And you saw him, interact with them and actually be a part of that team and that program. Back then, I was like, I'd like to see King Shark stick around for a little while because, again, he brings something to the table.
Like this. Hey there, big fella. My name's King Shark, and I'm a shark. Good choice for a name, then. I mean, just what a silly segment. But this is something that Six has as its core strength. You can do that, yet at no point in time do you lose just how deep and dark this issue is psychologically, because I'm just like, whoa. Ragdoll has been one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character in the series. The one who kind of I was going to say Scandal, but then there's Deadshot and Catman and Bane. So I don't know. I guess I like the whole crew and Jeanette. So I like the whole team. I have trouble with any of the members, the core members that we've seen, being lost. So it is funny how in this one, are we seeing the end, the coup de grace of Ragdoll, or are we seeing him reimagined or seeing him re-explained or learning something new about him that we never knew? I don't know. And that's fascinating to me, is that I've never felt that one character of the Six was so expendable as I feel in this arc. And when I say expendable, I mean that there's a potential target on him. I don't know that he's expendable per se. It's more that I see a target on him that I've never seen before. And I like that I want him to survive heavily, but I like that I don't know what could happen to him. And I do agree with you that that's a strength with this team, is that any of them is replaceable. Because there's so many, that arc with Skartaris did show us a whole potential other team that we were like saying, who would you keep, who wouldn't you keep? And there were names we were rattling off there that were all interesting out of the bat. I would have seen Giganti on the team. She would have been kind of cool to see.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know on this one. It's interesting to be worried about some of your favorite characters.
And I tell you, just artistically speaking, this final battle sequence, this couple pages where it really starts with where Ragdall's like, "What army?" He's like, "No army, just my friends." And then when you get into that fight sequence, just pure chaos of the battlefield. And I love seeing that. We saw this in the massive Skartaris battles, and the same thing going on here, where you got these actions. It's the open, not non-traditional panels, but even in the backgrounds, you see those skulls on kind of a blackish background as the underline of all of this. And just going through this, I sit here and I'll just stare at some of these fight sequences, and it's some beautiful stuff. And then when we get to that close-up of Ragdall's face, where Scandal's like, "Where is she? Where's Knockout, you twisted monster?" And he just kind of gets that sick, twisted grin on his face. You see the evil in him in that art panel, and even the next panel when we see Knockout standing there, just that again, that look of just evil in his eyes. I was just like, it really blew me away.
One other segment I want to make sure during that fight that you're talking about, I loved Deadshot and Bane's interaction. Because you talk about the overwhelming numbers and things like that, and the two of them just realizing we can't keep fighting this battle. We're not going to win. There's too many numbers. So logically, we've got to look at this. The only way to end this, the only way for us to potentially survive this, and that's what I love about these two. These are villains. They're survivors. These are characters who have survived fights with Batman. Many fights with Batman. Now, Batman's my number one guy. So you've got two characters that keep coming back in Batman's realm, even though he's put them away. That says a lot about their ability to adapt to anything that's been thrown at them, to various Arkham Asylum, lockups and things like that along the way, because both of them have been there. So now you got these two saying, "Hey, wait a minute, we got to get to the doll. It's the only way we're going to get out of here." And Bane agreeing with him, and the two of them having that interaction. These are two team members now that they're seasoned together. They've worked together for a decent amount of time now. They think alike, and there's a respect there between the two of them. Deadshot knew that if I share this plan with Bane, we're going to be on the same page, and this is an opportunity for us to, work together on this. I like that about the Six. I like that they are a squad. Mm-hmm. Even though they're villains, and we've got really big quirks for all of them, they are a squad there. I'm really curious to see what Catman's side story here, how is that going to converge with this? Is going to be an interesting twist. Because I do see at some point it's going to have to converge back, right? Next issue?
Yeah, he's got to make the connection back to the team, and it's just, I don't know. It's funny because as we're talking about all this stuff, we do have this other big story arc going on, and I do wonder if Alice is going to, come in as a cavalry. I know the last issue, she really was like, "I'm not going back there. There's no way I'm going back there," just because of her dealings with Hell. And I love that about her, that it did affect her so much to the point where she's like, no way, not going to happen. And you could understand that, but part of me wonders in the back of my head, are we going to get the riding in, the cavalry save the day at the last minute, or be their way out of this whole mix?
Yeah, I don't know. What's Catman going to learn about himself? Is this going to be a chance for him to face his own demons down there? And are we going to get a Catman back that we had before? Or is this going to continue Catman's journey down the path we've seen him on in recent issues? I don't know. I'm just so intrigued by this team. There's not a member on this team I'm not intrigued by.
Amen. It's, I don't know where it's going to go. And it's one of those where I've come up with multiple theories, and I could sit here for hours just talking about, well, what about this? What about that? But in the end, we're going to probably get something I never even thought of.
Yeah. Well, it's basically like 40 issues in with these characters, because, this is 32 issues on this, but you count the 2 minis beforehand.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with these characters, or, variations on them, because the first 2 minis was a little bit of a different team. But 40 issues in with these guys, and there's still so much to cover. That's cool. This is a series that I want to see continue on for a long time. And if you're not reading Secret Six, it is one of those, you can jump on this arc, which started last issue with issue 31. And, it's really easy to pick up what's going on. So don't feel like, because look at it this way. For those of you that are reading like books like Batman and Detective Comics and Superman and Action Comics and Wonder Woman, these are series that have been running for how many years and they're on what issue numbers? I think sometimes as completists, we forget that it is okay to jump on a series like right where it's at. And because we're all on a budget, and there are a lot of books that I read where I've just jumped on. And, I'm not just talking about DC. Around comics, I'll pick up titles and I'll be like, I can't go back and read everything. I don't have the time. I don't have the money to do it. So I look out for those jump on points. And this book, this arc right now, is a very good jump on point. It's really easy to pick up what's going on. They've got a card that, it's basically a get out of hell free card for one person. It's a one opportunity. And you've got a bunch of people here. Like, does Catman have a reason to bring somebody out of hell here? Is Dad an opportunity now? Is this going to bring them to a head with, that being an option as well? I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing I always do wonder is, what if they kill, Ragdoll, and Ragdoll uses it on himself to get out?
Yeah.
He could completely do that, and then the team's down there going, okay, we got a problem. How do we get out?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm the whole thing's just fascinating to me. Great issue.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutrons!
Longtime listeners remember an interview we did a while back with Tim Callahan about his Grant Morrison book, Grant Morrison, The Early Years. And I've been following Sequart since then. They have some wonderful books. They had a great collection of Legion of Superhero essays. I actually participated in a Kickstarter campaign for them before Jim did this interview for Diagram for Delinquents. And if you haven't had a chance, go to Sequart's site and check out some of the great, amazing projects that they're working on. I do encourage you, if you've never participated in a Kickstarter program, I've done it not only for the Sequart movie, but I also did it for recently a book called Athena Voltaire by Steve Bryant, which is a book that I've been a big fan of back in the day. I'm a big fan of this Kickstarter thing. I think it's a great way for comic projects to get funding. And the cool part about any of these projects is there's usually some swag or some offering that goes along with it, which makes it very worthwhile to be a part of the project. And you feel like you are a part of the creative process. So it's very cool, and I encourage you to consider the Warren Ellis movie supporting this Kickstarter project. A lot of fans of Warren Ellis are listeners of our show. If you haven't read Transmetropolitan, actually one of our listeners got me heavily into that book, and it's tremendous. So this is a creator that you definitely want to check out the DVD on. A great example of their DVD, one of our listeners recommended to me Grant Morrison, Talking with Gods, and I have that DVD. Sequart's doing some amazing comic projects that are really different and unique, and I'm glad to see these out there because I think this is a field where us as fans, we want to know more of these things. We want to hear more commentary. We want to see more unique experiences with comics. So this is an interview that Jim did at C2E2. These are always fun for me because I'm like a listener at this point for this interview because I wasn't there. So it's great to hear Jim take on the interview role and get to hear what these wonderful creators at Sequart are working on right now, these wonderful projects. So it was cool for me to hear it from this perspective, because usually when I'm editing the show, it's something that I've participated in and been a part of. So I get a kick out of these because it's a unique opportunity for me. So I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did when I was doing the editing.
And we are back again, coming from C2E2, and we are being joined by...
Julian Darius. I'm the publisher of Sequart Research and Literacy Organization.
Kevin Thurman. I'm the marketing director for Sequart, as well as the writer for Voyage and Noise, Warren Ellis and the Demise of Western Civilization.
You guys are working on a couple projects right now, and a couple when you're coming up sound very interesting.
2011 is our year of Ellis. Sequart has decided that it has unilaterally the right to designate years whatever we want. So we decided that 2011 is all about Warren Ellis, and we're doing 3 books and a documentary film on Ellis. We previously did Grant Morrison Talking with Gods, the documentary in collaboration with Respect Films, and the follow-up to that is about Warren Ellis, and it's called Warren Ellis Captured Ghosts, and it's on warrenellismovie.com. And to go along with that, we've got a book on Planetary. We've also got a book on Transmet later this year, and we've also got a book on Warren Ellis's entire career written by Kevin here.
Yeah, it's really my book, Voyage and Noise, which is coming out probably late summer, early fall.
Later this year.
Later this year. It unpacks a lot of the philosophical and societal ideas that Warren develops through his entirety, through all of his work. Yeah, it really shines a light, I think, on Ellis's work that maybe hasn't ever been thought of before, or maybe really even talked about. So we're hoping we're kind of branching into some new area here and really getting original thoughts out there about comic books in hopes of getting people to talk about it. We don't just want to make the book and put it out there and just let it lie silently. We want people to talk about it. We want people to disagree with us or agree with us. We definitely like it when you agree. But yeah, we just really love the comics community. We love this medium, and we feel that we want to be a part of it and help evolve it in a way that we can all be proud of and love and continue to enjoy.
That sounds actually kind of really cool. Just you thinking about it's not writing a book, or telling a story. It's the discussion of a person and where he stood for, where he believed. Now, I'm assuming you have some interesting interviews and discussions with him.
Yeah, I actually got to interview Warren Ellis last March in London for about a day. And it was one of the most intense and amazing and just life-changing events that I've ever experienced, that I've ever had. The man's amazing. He's very nice. He's actually incredibly approachable. And it's not at all what you would think.
Oh, outstanding. I love hearing when creators that, because I like his work. I'm really, a fan of what he's done. So hearing that there's a good person behind that always makes you feel a little bit better. You're like, oh, cool, because I get worried when I approach a creator because I'm like, hi, how you doing? I don't want to bother you, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Well, we're the same way. I always feel awkward because these guys here all day long, especially at these cons. Hey, man, I really like your work. This was best. We found, because we've been in business since 96, and we found that the comics community is just absolutely great with fans having access to creators and creators being just, in general, you hear all about the trash and, the rumors and the gossip. But the truth is that I'm always amazed by how accessible and nice these professionals are. You have to contrast that to something like Hollywood where, you're never going to talk to those guys. So it means a lot to us.
There's a very humanistic element to a lot of the creators, and they're real people, and especially a lot of them were comic book fans, and so they're going through they went through the same processes that we did going through now, and so there's a nice, firm, a solid connection. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it may seem funny, but I think that it says a lot that we all exist in a medium that once we get done with the con and everything like that, we can all go over to the Hyatt bar and drink with Jeff Johns or Kevin Colden or, whoever's over there, Jill Thompson. Like Jillian said, they're very approachable people. And like, as I'm sure you've experienced interviewing many of these people, they're very lovely people.
Well, a lot of times when I do my interviews, I get all gun shy, and I'm kind of like the Chris Farley routine where you're awesome. And so it's, it's kind of a...
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
Exactly. And so it's kind of this is one of the things I love about these cons, that we're getting these chances. And books like this where you kind of open up I don't want to say you open up in the soul, but you do get an insight to the person.
Yeah. And I come from an academic background, and I think that there is this way in which the academy can sort of talk about comics, but it's real insular, and it doesn't really speak to people. But I want to open up that serious thinking about comics to a general audience, and so we really, our mantra is that everything we do should be accessible but intelligent. So we want to bring serious discourse and really thinking about this stuff, but always make it accessible to anyone. So you could show any book or any documentary we do to anyone and say, see, this is why I love comics. It is a serious art form. It is a legitimate art form. And this is why I love it. You got to love it too. Because, to say that you're not aware of what's going on in comics is to be missing so much of the real action and adrenaline and newness of literature and art of the latter half of the 20th century.
Amen, amen.
Yeah.
Testify.
Yeah.
Outstanding. I love that because every comic book reader, we always have just that one moment in our life where someone's like, oh, geez, they roll their eyes at you, or the podcasters get that. You're talking about comic books, but there's something so much more to this, and it's a realism, and it's not even just the gritty graphic stuff. You can get it in a really great Superman story, and we're talking about this guy who's from another planet who absorbs solar energy and has superpowers, but there's still that human element to him, and in the great art, the great creators, they can pull that out and bring that out, and really just gets an emotional response, and outstanding, man.
It really is. I come from actually a philosophical literate background. I have a bachelor's in philosophy. That's really what I try to use, my background, when I examine things like Warren Ellis's work, or just a work like Planetary. There's so much depth to it, so much beauty, that it really deserves something more than just, oh, that was a cool book. It really deserves people talking about it and generating that enthusiasm over and over again, so it just keeps perpetuating itself. And people will make something even better than Planetary down the road, and then something will make something better than that. I think that's the hope of what we're kind of inspiring, is that conversation, but also that recapitulation and that creation.
Well, a lot of the projects, especially like Planetary, where you can read it multiple times and get a little bit different each time. And it depends on where you are at in life, what's going on, how old you are, younger. There's so many different variables, and that's one of the things I love about rereading some of these favorite stories of mine. You get the nice big collected edition, you put it out, and just the big pages. Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Well, my first comic I ever read was Uncanny X-Men. I think it was 232, where the Brood came back. And there was a storyline through it about a preacher that becomes infected by the Brood. And it's pretty... When I was a kid, I wasn't interested in that storyline, but I went back a few years and reread it, and I found that whole side story just fascinating. And it was actually pretty beautiful. That's the thing you get. You get a different side each time you read these books. Comic books always are important to reread, I think.
Well, and I think the other thing that you touched on was about superheroes, and people don't give superheroes respect as a genre. And I think it's really funny because nobody would balk at somebody writing like a master's thesis on Twilight, which is not exactly great literature. But, of course, like anything else, it has implications for society or how we see men and women or teenagers or what have you. And yet if you say, oh, there's a Superman comic that you need to read, that it is great literature. If you say, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? If you say, I mean, of course, we all know Dark Knight and Watchmen, but something like The Authority, when that came around and just transformed how we saw the superhero genre, or questioned politics when Mark Millar was doing it, these are serious issues, and it's really kind of a renegade medium where you can get away with a lot and you can question a lot in a way that would never get out in a Hollywood script. And I think as a consequence, comics are often much more vibrant, but people don't give the superhero stories enough acclaim and take it seriously. And that was one thing that mattered to us when we started with like Grant Morrison in the early years, was our first book. And people would say, well, we want to only talk about black and white independent comics and take that really seriously. And then you had like a lot of fans who would say, we love superheroes. And it occurred to us that there was a kind of middle ground where we could unite these groups and take superhero comics seriously, because whether you like it or not, that's the majority of an entire medium. And to ignore that is sort of like ignoring 80% of all movies or something.
As fans, we'll sometimes we'll feel a little embarrassed. We won't be completely open with people and talking about what we're doing. Like at work, it took a long time before my coworkers knew not only that I'm reading comics, that I'm doing the podcast. I kind of kept it personal because part of it, I knew there would be that negative feelings and how will they look at me. And definitely as a kid, I would never have touched any of the female comics because, come on, you're a guy, you can't read that girl stuff. Now, some of my favorite works are these wonderful all-female casts, and you get these really strong, powerful women in there, and you're just like, man, this is a cool story arc going on.
Well, that's like the problem with Wonder Woman. Like, for a long time, guys would not pick up Wonder Woman. You didn't want to go to that cash register at, the little comic store and be buying Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, actually, I would take my lunch break and I would go buy comic books with my lunch money. And I would always come back and sneak them in a folder, and I would read them in between a book during school. Nice. So it would look like, no one would know. And that's really unfortunate that anybody should have to feel that a beautiful medium like this is a dirty secret.
Yeah.
It's not pornography. It's not the dirty stepchild of literature and movies. It's a viable medium in and of itself. And that's really why, that's why C2E2 happens. That's why Raging Bullets happens. I mean, there's obviously a reason that you love comics so much that you're willing to be here exhausted, tiring yourself out, doing these podcasts, talking to, crazy people like me and Julian.
Part of it is you want education, you want other people to know and experience this and just enjoy what is so wonderful to me that I want to let them know. And I can imagine when you start looking into doing these biographical stories that it's you have that same type of passion.
I think that's the thing people don't realize as much too, is that my personal philosophy is that anytime a creator creates something, it's a bit of them. It's a bit biographical in some way, shape, or form. And there's really, I feel, more of a transparency with comic books in that than there is with even literature or even movies. And I think part of that is, once again, the approachability of the creators. You can go up to them and say, oh, you know what? Wonder Woman really changed my life, and I loved what you did with it, and thank you so much. And it helped me through this terrible time. And they might go, oh, well, you know what? I wrote that because I went through this. And there's that camaraderie, there's that connection, and that's so very important.
Yeah, and I always wonder sometimes when we start getting down and we start dissecting these works, and was it really what they intended, or did they just think this would be a cool segment to go through?
I guess I would say it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think that it's interesting to ask, but, I'm not as interested in the biography of the creator. I mean, to me, I think if you look at, like, The Invisibles, obviously, that's really important. It's autobiographical. I mean, if you look at American Splendor, you can't get away from that. But I don't know that, Claremont was writing about his personal life when he was writing Uncanny. I don't think that Kurt Swan was necessarily thinking that influenced his line, what was going on in his life. If you see an effect in a comic, if it's producing an effect, it doesn't necessarily matter if it was intended or not, because that effect is there in the text objectively. Like, when Mark Miller was doing Authority, I don't think that he was anticipating the Iraq War, but that same kind of interventionist, get rid of a dictator kind of thing became really prescient after the fact.
I find it interesting and fascinating when you're actually writing a book about a creator, and how much do you put into it as just the biographical timeline? How much is it the psychological exploration? How did you guys come up with the balance between those things? 'Cause for me, that would be a very difficult mindset to get around.
I think it depends book by book. I think for Patrick Meany did a book about the Invisibles for us, and there was just no way you weren't going to have to deal with, like, okay, this guy said he was abducted by aliens. You have to address that. It's important to the text. I think that other works, the biography of the creator doesn't matter as much. So I think you have to look at a case-by-case basis of what's right for that specific book or that specific essay.
What's funny about this conversation is that last night we did a Year of Ellis panel, and we had a Q&A, and somebody got up and asked us basically, why do you guys always agree? And as you can tell just from this podcast, Julie and I do not always agree. All the writers at Sequart do not always agree.
You're totally wrong about this biographical stuff, Kevin.
See? Exactly. And I vehemently believe I'm right about it. Okay. Actually, I know I'm right.
No.
But he pays me, so I have to say he's right.
That's not true.
It's true. I do it for free.
You're wrong about that, too.
But that's what we love about doing it. That we can sit here and have three different opinions between all three of us, and no one walks away mad. No one walks away. In fact, maybe Julian just said something that sparks an idea in me now, and I go, okay, maybe I should change my opinion of that. Maybe I didn't think that all the way through. And that's really the beauty of these collaborations and these books and a group like Sequart. We want to press that forward, that everyone has a voice, and that, our ideas are just as important as anybody else's. We have a pretty free, open submission policy. What we did, we're pretty packed at this point. Yeah, we had people come up to us all the time at cons and be like, oh, I really love to do a book about, I don't know, Promethea or something. And if they pitch it good enough, hey, sure, send us a sample or something. And then we're very approachable that way.
That's something I think we get so set on what we want to do, and this is our idea, this is our mindset, and it's very human nature, because I know with the show sometimes we've had suggestions in from listeners or from other people, and we're like, and you have to let go of some of the control sometimes to let the creative juices flow. So that's wonderful to hear you guys.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the DC universe?
Always.
I'm such a DC fan, and can we sort of steer the conversation onto that?
Oh, definitely, always.
I'm writing, actually probably out next month, a book about the Justice League and DC crossovers and looking at as a literary canon. And so I'm a big DC fan. This is theoretically the first of several books that examines groups of characters or portions of the DC universe as a literary canon and examines the sort of classic stories and it sort of approaches it in unpacking it and getting more. So obviously I'm a DC nutbag. What inspired you to talk about the DC universe, and where do you see it as something that is unique compared to other sort of multiverse constructions?
Well, for me with the DC universe, the birth of Raging Bullets was my co-host is a longtime DC fan. I was a person who was away from comics. And the initial concept that we was what would it take to bring back an old listener who had stepped away for a very long time. And it was right around the time of 1 year later, about 5 years ago, and just started, reading it, and we started talking about it. And within a couple months of reading, and I was borrowing his books, I had my own pull list. And then my pull list started growing, and I got back into just this wonderful universe. And as I started dissecting what I was reading, and I found that I was changing how I read it back even when I was in college. And it was more of a initial read-through, then a second read-through, and then, hey, let me just page through looking at the art. I was doing 3-4 read-throughs, even just stuff we weren't going to talk about the show. It's changed how I looked at stuff. And I'm a big fan of comic books. Now, financially, I do not get everything because you can't, and so I'm pretty much all in on the DC universe with a couple other titles that I'm pulling in. I'm reading some Boom stuff. I'm reading The Boys, reading various other outside projects. But for me, it's always been this exploration of human nature and the superhero genre, the nature of a hero, and actually on the flip side, the nature of the villain. There's some fascinating human elements that I love just to delve my teeth into.
I think one of the things that separates the DC universe from others is you were talking about 1 year later, and that sense of history and continuity in the DC universe that, obviously Marvel has continuity, but that the DC universe is a generational saga. And even though you've had Infinite Crisis, you've had Crisis on Infinite Earths, you've obviously had, too many retcons to count. At the same time, those old stories continue to influence it, and you have titles like JSA that respect the past and the tradition, and Robinson's Starman, which was so influential. And so there is that sense of generational saga to the DC universe that I think it has that quality more than Marvel.
Oh, definitely. I love that's the universal feel of the DCU, especially with the most recent events that have been hitting. Just starting with not even after Crisis on Infinite Earth, just going through the Green Lantern Corps War, just how that affects. Then Blackest Night, how it affects. There's currently coming down the pipeline, Flashpoint, that's going to change everything. And then what's going to be normal, what's going to change, where the tweak's going to be. I love reading that universe and family style to it. And not even just, you got your Batman family, you got your Superman family, but you even have just other groups coming together that have that familiar family feel to them. Everyone always talks about JSA is training the next generations of heroes. But you even look at stuff with Birds of Prey, with Oracle, and she now has Proxy out there with Stephanie over in Batgirl. You have this expanding. The next generation is coming up, and we got to make sure they're ready. And I love those moments.
For me, DC has a deeper, richer mythology, I feel like. Getting into DC Comics is a lot like getting into, Greek mythology. There are these very powerful gods, and they do have all their genealogies, and it's just so deep, and it's so rich. Whereas, nothing against Marvel. I love Marvel. I grew up as a Marvel kid. But there's just not that vast history to it, I feel like, that you should know, that you want to know.
Is he allowed to stay, having made that confession?
I may have been kicked off.
Oh no, everyone's welcome. That's the beauty of all this, is we all have our discussion, we have all our opinions, and we all have our voice out there, and it does need to be heard. And it's funny because I started into the comic game on the Marvel side. I was a big X fan. I was getting all the different X books, Wolvies. I was doing some Cap, and my brother was a huge Spider-Man fan. And as I went on to college, I had a friend who was a DC fan, so I started reading some of his stuff. I started getting into DC, and then I had to just flat out stop because I couldn't afford it because I was a starving college student. And coming back into the mix, coming back into the fold, it was just a great feeling, and just that kind of welcome home, kind of with the Green Lantern Corps, with Superman, with the Bat, everything that's happened to Batman. It's from the brooding, angry Bat to now we have this Bat family, where Bruce is the nurturing father. He's still a scary son of a gun, and he can't intimidate you. He's still the Dark Knight, but there's those moments when he's with Tim and Dick and even Damian, just bringing everybody in to watch the Mask of Zorro.
And I think the Damian example is perfect for that, because that's relatively recent, and yet that added such a dynamic of family. And the other thing about this sense of longevity is, like, you look at Superman as sort of the archetypal superhero. I mean, no matter what, and I read a lot of Marvel, I read a lot of DC, I read a lot of independents, but Superman he's the guy, right? Yeah. I mean, everyone with powers is a sort of filtered down version of this original guy. And I think when we think of the superhero without any powers, the vigilante figure, I mean, Batman is the archetypal guy. Now, obviously, there were pulps like the Shadow before him, but, as a superhero without powers, nobody does that better than Batman. I mean, he is the archetype. For the magical character, for the female character, it's all versions of Wonder Woman. I mean, Buffy is a version of Wonder Woman. It's a different version, but Buffy couldn't exist without Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Oh, very arguably that Wonder Woman was one of the very first strong female hero types where people know Wonder Woman, whether it's the Linda Carter TV show or stuff from comic books or even just general knowledge. People have general knowledge of her. They have general knowledge of Batman, even if they're not a comic book collector. You say the name Bruce Wayne, most people will know who you're talking about. Clark Kent, same kind of story. Now, will they know who Tim Drake is? No, because you got to really be a fan to know that which Robin he is, or Jason Todd, or any of that. But they'll know Bruce Wayne. They'll know Gotham, Metropolis. These are iconic, names that cross, that just cross all genres and all levels of people. Mm-hmm. So there is some great stuff going on there, and and people will argue then, and let me just throw out the other argument before anybody says it, about Peter Parker. Especially now Iron Man's getting huge. People know who Captain America is. Anytime anybody sees somebody with a shield, they'll immediately think Captain America. So I'm not going to take away from the Marvel side, but I'm a Superman guy, honestly, so I agree with you completely that when Bugs Bunny got superpowers, what did he do? He's got a red cape and a big B on his chest. Yes. He was Super Bugs. Yes. So there is that whole kind of, reverence and just where we all aspire to be.
Well, I think that's one of the amazing thing about the comics medium is that it deals in so much in metaphors and symbology, which really deals directly with the unconscious and how we interact with things and how we interact and perceive the world. And that's why, to me, DC does it so well. I don't find it unusual that you and I grew up on X-Men comics, but as we got older, we gravitated toward DC now. DC is, in a lot of ways, it has a certain maturity to it. A timelessness that you can give it to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I just actually finished the Jack Kirby Fourth World Saga, and I know that there is some datedness in it, especially how Superman talks to some of the hippies and stuff. But
that's awesome.
It is awesome. I mean, I got excited about that. I laughed and I loved it.
I used to be a huge anti-Silver Age because of the dialogue, and on the show actually, and I was bashing it bad. Yes. And I got some emails from from our listeners saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not giving it a fair shake." And I actually went back and I've reread, and now I can appreciate what is the Silver Age, where they came from, that these are the ancestors of some of the stuff we're seeing today. And you got to know and understand and appreciate the past to really get into the present. Now, it's funny, as we're talking, I'm thinking, we've gone completely off the loop, but I don't care. What are your opinions on the current stuff with Flashpoint? With this big dramatic change, they've been keeping, and they're intentionally keeping everything quiet and just throwing out that the world is going to change. Something big's coming.
I don't know. I've been a huge Flash fan for a long time. I love, obviously, the Mark Waid stuff, but I go back to Baron and even the Trial of the Flash. I don't know. I'm reserving my opinion because I think the worry on the street is this going to be House of M?
Well, and House of M or Age of Apocalypse is another comparison people are throwing out. And I personally really enjoyed Age of Apocalypse, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where they're going to tweak this universe.
Well, it's bringing excitement back. I mean, I do love that it's a great team. I mean, of Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert. It's just such awesome stuff.
What is your speculation about Flashpoint? Like, where do you think it's going to head? I'm curious.
Oh God, I have so many different weird theories that I'm throwing out there, and I'm trying to figure out where. Hopefully, I'm hoping that this will bring back the Marvel family. That in this time, with the changing of the time and just the changing of reality, we're going to get our Marvel family back, because they have said that there's going to be a lot of lightning in this series. And they because they were flat out asked about the Marvel family, and they said Flashpoint. There's a lot of lightning going on in it. So that's definitely an excitement for me.
I think that would be great. I mean, I think there are so many people out there who recognize how important Captain Marvel is in history, and a lot of us enjoy Power of Shazam, but there's always been that problem of how do you replicate that classic stuff, and I think that Captain Marvel is such a unique character in that maybe Plastic Man is another example where sort of their defining most classic run occurred in the Golden Age, which is really unique. I mean, you can't really say that. I mean, very few people look back and say the best Superman stories were in the 40s. I don't think anyone says that. Captain Marvel and Plastic Man are in that weird boat.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny because you mentioned Plastic Man. I've never really been a huge Plastic Man fan. I've read a couple of the trades, and I understand the humor behind them, and I get the attachment. For me, I've never really read him in on a team and him in a series, and so he's a character that I would like to see, and I would like to kind of get into his psyche. But with Captain Marvel, same thing. I didn't have a connection, but they had the Johnny DC line, the Billy Batson. I read that, and I loved the character, and I started going back Shazam and the Monster Society. I started getting all those different. I'm like, man, this guy is amazing. I want to see him.
But you got to read the archives because, you go through and you say, wow. I mean, in the 40s, first of all, he was a kid who turned into it. So you took the sidekick and you combined it with the hero in this really unique way, and then they were just doing crazy stuff. Like, you've got a 25 issue storyline or so in the 40s, which is unthinkable at the time, and it ends up the villain behind it all is a conscious worm. I mean, just crazy stuff.
Mr. Mind.
Yeah.
Outstanding. He's a character that I'm making a conscious effort to get the other stuff and get the older stuff and pull it in. Same thing with Aquaman. People are talking about throwing out the different Aquaman series, because in Blackest Night with Mira, I really just fell in love with that character, saying, wow, this is a cool character. And if you like this character, you got to read some of the earlier Aquaman and get that kind of, because he's the same type of strong character that has that nobility presence to him, that it's like, oh, cool, all right, this is a true hero type of mindset.
Going back to Captain Marvel, I think that's one of the beautiful things about a character like that is, I think almost every comic reader has had that point where they wish they were Billy at 8 years old, able to say the magic word and become Captain Marvel, and you could do whatever you want.
You wanted to say Shazam, right?
I did want to say Shazam.
You wanted to.
I wanted to, and I chickened out.
I'll go for it. Come on, have fun.
Shazam.
Sorry,
that was
didn't
the first
work.
one up. Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
It's funny. Just going back to the book, I want to make sure that we get out where people can get this, because we got off on a tangent. Let's pull it back.
Well, right now, the first book of the Year of Ellis push, it's on Planetary. It's called Keeping the World Strange, A Planetary Guide. And it's got a great cover by Ian Moody. It's edited by Cody Walker and has a bunch of essays that look at all these different elements of Planetary, from the pulps to how it fits in with superheroes at the time and change them. Kevin, you've got an essay in it, and this is in previews right now. It's in this previews, and it'll come out in May. So if you're interested in that, you got to order it through your comic store, because it's in that ghetto of the book sections in previews, and we've got an ad in there, but you'll see it if you're flipping through. But a lot of stores won't order it necessarily, so reserve it at your store.
Our second book is actually my book, Voyage and Noise, which, like I said, is all about basically the corpus of Ellis's work, and really analyzes a lot of the social and, like I said, philosophical implications. For instance, I just finished a whole chapter about how Warren uses hate and anger in his comics for progress, for change. And it's actually a really powerful storytelling element that he uses, and it's so vital for Warren that he does it like nobody else can. And really, it shows a different light to how even us as Americans deal with our own anger and aggression, and how we become resentful or repressive about it. And in actuality, there are ways that we can express it and deal with it like mature adults, instead of angry children and just, stamping our feet and saying me, me, me.
Later this year, we've also got Shot in the Face, which is a savage journey to the heart of Transmetropolitan. And that's edited by Chad Nevitt of CBR. And of course, we also have the documentary Warren Ellis Captured Ghosts. It's at warrenellismovie.com. And we're running a Kickstarter campaign right now to just get some finishing costs, because these movies are so expensive. I mean, flying around the world, we've got maybe 30, 40 hours of Ellis and multiple shoots, and we've interviewed maybe 25, 30 other creators who worked with him. As we're cutting it all together, we want to do these reenactments, to have these crazy, reenactments that Ellis has read portions of his work, and to really do those right, we want to just get a few $1,000s to make the props and really do it right. So we hate asking for money. It's awful, but we are running a campaign on Kickstarter, and you can find out more at sequart.org or about all of our projects, and also at warrenellismovie.com.
And that's Sequart, SEQUART.org, just making sure. And just so everybody knows, we will be putting links into our show notes. So if people are listening to this, you don't have to start scribbling it down. Just check on the website. We'll have the links there. Thank you again for this wonderful time.
It was great being here.
Thank you so much. You're a true professional. We love the podcast.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having us.
Now I can get out of here.
Jim, one of the things that I've liked that we've been doing lately is periodically we'll talk about some DC news and some things that we're seeing on the Source blog. I want to start by talking about DC receiving 14 Eisner nominations. And it's really cool because the ones that, Best New Series, let's start off with that. American Vampire by Scott Snyder, Stephen King, and Raphael Albuquerque. And I'm sure I'm butchering his last name, so I apologize. We both have really been digging that series. iZombie, Chris Robertson, Mike Allred. Superboy by Jeff Lemire and Pierre Gallo. It's Piergallo, and Jeff's last name I don't know if it's Jeff Lemire or Jeff Lemire, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering that one too. Very interesting choices for those series, because all three of those titles are ones that I'm really digging. American Vampire and iZombie are two of my favorite new books out there, period. From Vertigo. I think they're great. American Vampire, I jumped on board because of Stephen King, but now I'm on board because of Scott Snyder. I'm Scott Snyder happy at the moment with his detective work and now this. And Chris Robertson, he's taken over on Superman. And I think he's doing a great job with Grounded. With JMS's scripts and things like that, working that out and finishing that storyline. He's been great, but iZombie's been a favorite book. Do you have, out of those three, and I know there's other Best New Series in there. These are only the DC noms. But if you had to pick one out of those three, could you? Which one would you pick?
I'd actually probably go with Vampire.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one. Are you with me in the sense that you're tentative because of iZombie?
Yeah, it's between zombie and vampire, and both. And not to knock Superboy, I'm really digging Superboy. I think it's a cool series, but just for some reason, vampire and zombie both are kind of like they're fighting between a top spot between the three of them. And I think it's just the different, each one has a little bit different take on the zombie mythos, and then a little bit different take on the vampire mythos. And I really like what they're doing in Vampire. I like the changes. I like the tweaks to the vampire lore, and just even how they're kind of explaining it, that it's just a natural part of evolution of the species. So I'm digging what we're getting from Vampire, and that's why it's just slightly edging, because I think I'm more of a vampire fan than a zombie fan, just in the general genres.
I like the history piece of it, though. I like that we're going through various eras of history, and we're seeing how... I like how there's not just a couple of main characters. We're seeing a gradually developing supporting cast of the regular vampires, the traditional vampires, and these American vampires, and getting to see how, even villains, that Hattie... seems to be making reappearances and stuff like that. So none of the characters that are in there seem to vanish. They seem to all come back over time. So we're building a great cast that is fun to follow and see how their lives are affected. I wonder if this book's going to eventually reach, it almost has to reach modern day, right?
It's got to work its way there. And I'm curious to see how much has changed when it gets up to the modern day. And then even once it reaches modern day, it can always go back again and cover other areas that they never talked about, or just have a story arc that appears in a little bit right after or right between two different story arcs. I think they got a lot of room for growth and room for change, and I think that's something I'm also liking about the Vampire, just the openness they have and the freedom that there is for creative teams.
And an opportunity to introduce new characters in the future, then, to expand some of that lore, like characters we didn't see on camera, and what their experience was like. And you could almost see, then, our main characters from their perspective, saying, maybe they had a chance encounter with this person, and they were just kind of seemed like a throwaway, but then they came in. There's a lot of opportunity there, you're right. iZombie, I had a tough time, because I am a big fan, first of all, of the writing of it, but the artwork of Michael Allred on that series, I think, is just brilliant. I think it's just been a great book. So I'm still, even at this point, tentative. That's not taking anything away from Superboy. I've been enjoying the piece. I think what the problem is for Superboy is I think it hasn't had enough time yet for me to get as attached to it as I am the other two books. The other two books have had more issues. Mm-hmm. And I've really become heavily entrenched into their world and supporting cast. Because the writer of Superboy, Sweet Tooth, is, for me, and I've loved his work on Adam, but Sweet Tooth, to me, is just a brilliant series. Another one of my favorite Vertigo titles out there right now. So I think that is why, out of those three books, it's winding up in number 3, only because I think I haven't had enough chance to develop. But I agree with you on American Vampire being the top spot there, easily. Best Limited Series, Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. Joe the Barbarian by Grant Morrison and Sean Murphy. Cinderella from Fabletown with Love by Chris Robertson and Sean McManus. Tough choices there. How have you read any? Well, here's the first question. I've read all 3. Have you read any of those?
I haven't read any of them.
I would have. It's very tough for me to make a decision as far as which one I think is the best. Joe the Barbarian had an issue with some delays, and I think that took me out of that book a little bit. It was a great series, and I really loved it. The one that really shocked me, and I guess it's because I hadn't read anything at that point by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba, Day Tripper was like a sleeper hit that came out of nowhere. Like Cinderella, I was excited and on board for because I'm a Fables fan. So to have a spy adventure James Bondy kind of series with Cinderella, and I do recommend that for anybody who, and it's fully accessible if you haven't been reading Fables. This Cinderella series, and there's a new one, they're fully accessible. You don't need to be reading Fables. If you have been, you can jump right in. It feels like a side story that takes place in Fables, but these are very contained. So don't feel like, ooh, I've been enjoying iZombie, but I haven't given a Cinderella a chance because I haven't been reading Fables. You can jump right on this. Completely contained. Very cool. And if you like James Bondy kind of action style adventure with some fun humor thrown in, but it skirts the line without being too silly. It's a perfect blend of, this would make a great movie, Cinderella. Day Tripper, though, I think is my number one choice on that one. I really enjoyed this exploration of this character in this series, so Day Tripper was probably the one I'd give it to. Best continuing series, Scalped by Jason Aaron and R.M. Guerrera. Are you still reading Scalped?
I'm reading it in trade.
I am too. Actually, Scalped's one I'm reading in trade. Not because, and it's not a negative on it. I got on trade a while ago when I got behind on some of my reading, and I've been collecting it in trade, and I really like reading the trade volumes. I've got to say, I've been getting every trade as they've been coming out and really digging the series. Jason Aaron's batting 1,000 for me, so that one I'm glad to see that nominated.
Oh, amen, amen. It's got a little bit different, as I say, I want my Vertigo or even just these outside of the DCUs just to have a little bit different taste to them than what I'm getting in the DCU, and I'm definitely getting that a solid story, just a little bit a different taste to it, a little bit different feel than what I got, and I like it. It's when I went to trades on it, it had nothing to do with enjoyment or the type of quality of story. It was just, for me, I found I was stockpiling it, and I was like, you know what? It'll just be easier on me to get the whole story at once. Just wait for the trades to come out, and that's what I started doing with it. And like you're saying, I enjoy reading them like that.
Best single issue or one shot, Fables 100 or Unknown Soldier 21. Did you finish Unknown Soldier when you were? Yeah. I know we were both collecting that one monthly. And I know you're not. Are you reading Fables, or have you gotten? I know you got one of the trades at least.
Yeah, I've picked up some of the trades. I'm not 100% like with a good solid stockpile on it though.
Fables 100 gets the edge for me on that one, and I loved Unknown Soldier, but Fables 100 was so well put together. It felt like a true anniversary issue. It was gorgeous, just had a great story, so I'd give a slight edge to Fables 100 out of that. Best short story, Batman in Trick for the Scarecrow by Billy Tucci. I love Billy Tucci. In DC Universe Halloween Special 2010. I'm glad to see these specials getting some nominations. Whether they win or not, it's good for them to get a notice, because I think people might miss these and dismiss them as, it's just another holiday book. And I would say the same thing for these giant-sized books that they've been releasing, the 80-page giants. If you haven't been picking these up, there's some really clever stories being developed in there. You're seeing a lot of talent who you don't normally get to see either doing the writing and the art, or doing any kind of work on these particular characters, getting a shot at giving their own little contained stories. And there's something to each one of them that's quirky. Sometimes when you see these specials, they're kind of intertwined and interconnected by an overarching story. Other times they're all completely independent. And then other times there's a theme, but the stories aren't connected. I really love the artistic freedom that creators seem to have with these. And I'm glad to see, it's Billy Tucci, so of She fame. So you can't go wrong with Billy Tucci on that one. Best publications for kids. Glad to see Tiny Titans continuing to get nods, because that's one. Has there ever been an issue of Tiny Titans that you felt was lacking?
No. I can honestly say I've never had a issue where I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I always chuckle, I always laugh, I always enjoy something. I always see those little extra stuff that are put in for the adult readers, and I found myself starting to do some of the little puzzles that they put in there.
I do too. I don't draw on the book because that there's that whole comic fan thing. I can't do any of that. But I do. I'll follow. If it's a maze, I'll follow through with my finger and do all that. Yeah. But regardless of that, one of the compliments I want to give to the book, I'm a big fan of, the daily comics. I read them in the newspaper. And even my favorite ones, you'll hit that episode where it's a groaner, that daily one where you're like, oh. It's still humorous and fun to read. I've never had that experience with Tiny Titans. There's never been a gag in there where I've groaned. I don't know if you had that experience, but for me, that's one of the consistencies of the book has been, you mentioned chuckling. I always chuckle at the book. And I enjoy the stories and the ongoing quote-unquote kind of continuity that's in the book, but I've never felt like groaning at any of the particular gags. Have you? Has there been any of them where there have been groaners to you?
Well, not groaners in a bad way. There's some stuff where I'll sit there and it's part of the chuckling process for me to see the when they started doing when DC was doing the Faces of Evil, and Tiny Titans did their version of it, but for their covers, I was like, oh, that's awesome. It is. So it's a groan, but it's a chuckle for me.
Okay, which makes sense. Best graphic album reprint, Wednesday Comics. Did you get the oversized hardcover of that? Wednesday's comic? gorgeous reprint, that
yeah.
one. I mean, that was well worth it to me. I liked the oversized I liked the whole newspaper print thing, and I thought it was a very cool experiment, and I do hope they do another one releasing it that way, because I thought that was cool. But to have it then collected in this oversized volume that's the same size as those, to me, I don't think I'll ever touch the paper versions again, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I do hope they do another one.
Yeah, I'd like to see them do that again. I don't know what the numbers were on it, so I don't know if it's for them worthwhile. But for me, enjoyment-wise, I definitely would pick that up. And even with some of the characters that weren't like on my top, I'm loving this, I really want more stories about this person. I had a couple of those characters there that I still enjoyed the stories.
Best writer-artist. This is one I haven't read. Joe Kubert, Dong Zhuai. Excuse me for that one. Vietnam, 1965. And this is part of the Joe Kubert library. I actually really want to read that because I've heard good things, but I have not read it myself. And that is one of the cool things about... I actually want to go after this and take a look at all the Eisner Awards, not just the DC ones across the board, because a lot of times that's a good chance for me when I'm trying to prioritize what trade collections I want to get or things like that of books that I haven't been reading. This will give me a lot of times some things where I'm like, oh, I've got to read that, I want to read that, I want to read that, and it'll bump it up the stack as far as books I can read, because my big issue isn't that I don't want to read comics outside of DC. I do read and collect a lot outside of DC. The problem is time-wise prioritizing what trades to get, because there is only a limited amount of hours in the day for reading. And I like to read novels and things like that too, so prioritizing books outside of DC, because we read a lot of DC for the show, is hard for me to do. But the award ceremonies like this do give me a chance. Do you pay attention? What do you pay attention to? It doesn't have to be the awards. Like when you're trying to make a decision, because I know you'd read and pick up some books like I do, you read books outside of DC, what helps you make a decision as far as what to pick up with the sheer amount of cool product out there?
Well, I flip a coin.
But how do you know what titles to flip a coin over? taking your joke to something serious.
Like, good heads, I pick it up. Bad heads, I don't. I got my Harvey Two-Face coin that I flip for every single coin. It takes me a while to order my comics because I'm going through every single title, every single... No.
I would love to work at the comic shop where somebody actually did that. This guy's been here for 4 hours flipping coins. He's like literally going from book to book to book on the shelf. What the heck? No, seriously, how do you make a decision as far as what to pick? What does draw you in?
Well, sometimes it is creative team names. Mm-hmm. If I see, there's certain creators out there. If I see they're working on another book, I'll take a look at it. I'll read the blurb on it, see what the subject matter is, and make my decision that way. It does when I'm ordering through DCBS. I'm a while. It's my ordering process is probably over an hour. Of just because I go through the different, outside of the DCU, and just pull up, boom, okay, what's on, boom, pull up, pull them up by the different creative, Dynamite. Okay, let's see what they got. This, IDW. Oh, hey, that looks interesting. I've read his stuff before. I'm gonna give that a shot. And it's, it's a lengthy and time-consuming process for me, but I find different stuff that I enjoy, and it's these little things that are outside of my normal comfort zone that you get some really cool stories, and you're introduced to new creative teams.
See, for me, it's really interesting. I have a certain budget that I have for DCBS every month to order my books. And I'm like, this is what I know for sure budget-wise my budget can handle without, having to worry about strapping us or anything like that. I'm having a lot of trouble this month because I don't know if you've looked through, the amount of product being published. There's a lot of cool hardcovers coming out this month. So for me, I'm having trouble as far as, do I prioritize my DCBS order to... I've already placed my order, but I want to go back and I might edit some of it because there's so many cool deals on their website on hardcovers that I'm like, well, maybe I'll take some of my monthly books for that particular and get them locally and get some of my hardcovers pre-ordered so I stay within that budget, because I do have each week I have a certain amount of money that I set aside that I can use to go to the local comic shop or to hit a bookstore or something like that and pick up a trade, and that will have some wiggle room based on what's going on for us during the month, expenses-wise. I'm having a lot. Did you have trouble this month's order as far as picking and choosing what to get? Have you made your order for this month?
I actually haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I've been so busy with figuring out my taxes that I haven't done the ordering yet. Now that the one's done, probably tonight is when I'll do my ordering. So
there's another Sandman. There's an Absolute Sandman Volume 5, which collects some of the stuff after the fact, that has been done by Neil Gaiman and then have been collected and redone, with artwork and things like that. So it's all the stuff that came afterwards that he was involved with. So I have to have that.
Yeah.
And I placed my order already, but I didn't have that in there. So, and the decision for me is, because I have my budget where it's at. I don't have any wiggle room. So do I take some of my regular monthly titles out of that to put that in and then pick those up as they come out? Because it's easier to budget that way. I don't know. It's a very tough month for me. And then there's which I didn't order yet either, a Titans Omnibus, a Teen Titans Omnibus. Yeah, it's the Wolfman Perez stuff. It's the DC Comics Presents that first introduced them. Mm-hmm. I believe that was the issue. I'm almost positive it was DC Comics Presents that are introduction. And then the first 16 issues of the series in an omnibus, like that Death and Return of Superman omnibus.
Okay, well, I'll be getting that.
Yeah. So, I'm like, this month, I'm looking at just the sheer number of books that I want to get, and I'm like, whoa. And those are two high ticket items. Those absolutes, even though it's 50% off, it's still over a $50 book. And then the Titans one, I think, is with their discount is $36, I think. And I'm just doing this off the top of my head, which in both cases bargains. So I'm almost like I kind of need to pre-order those if I'm going to get them, so I get the discount. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get the books.
Looks like I'm selling blood this month.
Well, that's what I think I'm going to do, too. I'll join you, I might sell your blood.
Yeah.
You can get an extra pint out of him, right? I'll drive him home.
I'll wake up in the bathtub full of ice, and a note from Sean. Thanks, appreciate it. Like, oh, dang it, Sean.
Well, you know what I'll do? I'll sit next to you and read my Absolute. Best cover artist, Dave Johnson and Yuko Shimizu. Dave Johnson's on Unknown Soldier, and it's Yuko Shimizu, and I apologize, I'm butchering that, I know. The Unwritten. Have you read that yet?
No, I haven't, actually.
That's a really cool book, and if you're missing it, it's kind of... I've mentioned before on the show that it's kind of like Harry Potter comes to life. What if Harry Potter was really a character? And it's one of those where I've really enjoyed the development of Tommy in this book, and it's one of those that I wouldn't let go in a million years. I am collecting it monthly, but I read it in arcs, like it would be traded. And the only reason why I'm doing that, I've got some kind of bizarre sense that, like, if I'm at least collecting it and stockpiling it, and it is really due to time, it's not due to the quality of the book, if I'm collecting it and stockpiling, at least I'm putting my number in there as far as sales numbers, because I don't want to see this book canceled, because I think it's cool. And we lost, like, Air, we lost Unknown Soldier, a couple of really cool books. Vinyl Underground, back in the day, we liked that book as well. There's a lot of the Vertigo titles that I really enjoy, and I know you always mention palate cleansers. I don't want to put them in that category because they're not palate cleansers for me. They're a part of my genuine pull. I need them in my pile. And they're books that I need a Vertigo fix. I need a certain amount of Vertigo titles because I like those books, and I like what they're doing there. So I need to try and keep room in there for these titles, and that's one that I would not drop in a million years because it's so cool. But I do read it in arcs, and I do find that I stockpile and collect them. Do you have any books that you read in arcs that, like, you... I know miniseries you mentioned, and I do that too, like that JLA the 99. I read the first 2 issues, but then I waited until it was finished and I read all 6 issues together, which was a very good book. I really enjoyed that. By the end, I really found myself liking the 99. It was great to see so many cool Justice League characters, and the colorist on that was friend of the show, Alan Pasalacqua, which I didn't realize until I was looking through the credits. I'm like, who did the work on this one? And really did a great job on that. Got to do, like, every big namer that you can imagine on that title, but it was a very good miniseries at the end. Do you do that with other books, though, like regular monthly books? Are there ones that you stockpile on purpose?
Yeah, House of Mystery.
Yeah.
And I was doing it with Xanadu.
I missed that book.
Yes, so do I.
That was a great one. I ended up finishing that whole series, and that was Amy Reeder. And she's the upcoming artist, which September, I think, now is the release for Batwoman.
Oh, cool.
And my understanding is that wasn't done because the art wasn't done or anything. I think they're looking to probably launch that towards the end of Flashpoint, probably just so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Because they released a lot of Bat books at one time. So I can imagine that book would probably be better served being launched on its own later. So I'm kind of glad to hear that they're doing that, because it's a book that, just from the preview art and from what we got to see in that Zero issue, although it's kind of bizarre now that they released the Zero issue and now we've got this long delay between issue 1. Almost like they should have just waited on the Zero issue, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, probably, but I think they wanted to strike, just keep people remembering the character now, knowing that there's going to be a long gap for when we get the 1. If they had waited, and again, I think you look at all the issues, all the different titles that are coming out during Flashpoint, Batwoman could very easily get lost.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a good move on their part to kind of let it wait to the ending, and that way, it shouldn't, the one series shouldn't affect sales or whatnot.
Well, and we saw, like, in Azrael, for example, which I'm very sad to see go, Freedom Fighters, these are titles that, if they're not ending, All-Stars, from JSA All-Stars, if they're not done yet, they're going to be ending soon, and these are a lot of titles that I've been really enjoying, and it's sad to see them go, especially with the $2.99 price point. So I'm with you. I think it would be a good idea to launch some of these books after the Flashpoint event, and strike, while the iron's hot, and people are going to be DC happy with Flashpoint, I'm assuming. It's going to be one of those events that are going to get people excited again. And I do hope that they hold on to that $2.99 price point for at least some time after Flashpoint, because I think that is a welcoming price point for newer readers. I really don't think it heavily affects the diehard current audience of DC fans, in the sense that only it might affect us as far as 1 or 2 books that we might not pick up if it's a little bit more expensive. It'll shrink our budget a little bit, but we're still going to keep reading some of our DC favorites. But I think what will happen is you'll get a lot of fans, because I know I tend to check out from other companies when they're doing big events or the big buzz book, because you hear a lot of people talking about it, so it gets you excited to read it. And if you're going to stay on with that company and following their books, Marvel's a great example of that. I'm reading a lot of Marvel stuff in trade because of time that I mentioned earlier on the show. But I do tend to follow the big events when they're coming out. And if they're going to be launching titles post the event, like, I'm really excited. It looks like there's going to be a Cloak and Dagger series written by Nick Spencer. And I'm a big Cloak and Dagger fan. So, that book launching right now, I'm something that had to fit into my budget, because Nick Spencer's been batting very high for me. I've loved, what he's done with Thunder Agents. I loved, any of his work that he's been doing recently. Jimmy Olsen, I thought, was terrific. His first issue of Supergirl that he did, until that ended up changing. I was hoping that was going to lead to him doing a Jimmy Olsen book, but obviously with his being Marvel exclusive now. But I would like to have a fix of this guy. So Cloak and Dagger is one of the areas where I'm going to get a Nick Spencer fix, just because I think he's really cool. So, I don't know. It's interesting when we take a look at the Eisner Awards. Did we miss anything? Oh, Best Coloring and Best Lettering. Dave Stewart for Detective Comics. Neil Young's Greendale, which I missed that one, and I want to grab that. That was a Vertigo original hardcover, I believe, or it was a graphic novel. I don't remember. I don't know if it was hardcover or trade. I did miss that one. Day Tripper and Joe the Barbarian, all of which I read except for Greendale. And then Best Lettering, Todd Klein for Fables, The Unwritten, and others from Vertigo and DC. And then Tom Strong and The Robots of Doom, which I also read. I was a big ABC with Alan Moore when he was doing them fan. And when they redid this series, Tom Strong and Robots of Doom, it was really well done. It was a lot of fun. I have got to, and I would love, if anybody knows of a DC letterer who would be interested in coming on the show at any point in time, this isn't something that has to be right now, if you come into contact with them, who would be interested in talking about lettering. I've got to admit my own ignorance on lettering, other than, there's been issues where I'll look at it and I'll appreciate a font that was chosen or something like that, the way it adds to the overall look of a book. But I would love to talk to a letterer about what they do, just because I think that there's so much that we don't know as fans that a letterer does. I'm not familiar with that, other than in the sense that I appreciate that a letterer is the reason we read the words that this person puts their time into doing, and that there's a lot of choices that go into the decision making, and to make it is something where we're not going right now, oh my gosh, you catch the lettering on that, it was so obnoxious and it took me out of the book. I've never had that experience, so that is a testament to the letterers and the work that they're doing, that it really doesn't stand out. It just enhances and it does what it's supposed to do and keeps you moving along in the story. But I don't know much. Do you know anything about lettering?
No, not really. It's one of those artistic fields that I'm like, okay, I do appreciate sometimes, and I notice it, and I'm always curious as to when they're doing the different, when they change the font style for the different heroes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I always wonder who makes that call. Is that in the writing? Is that in the lettering? Where does that decision come from?
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm totally ignorant to the sense that I know when I appreciate it in a book, when I do see, like, what you're talking about, when, like, it'll switch between a character or a tone or something like that, and those choices are made, I'll be like, wow, that looks really neat and all that. But I think it's just as impressive at the times when I don't notice it, when I'm not supposed to, when I'm supposed to just move along, and what choices are made there to make sure that it doesn't detract from your experience, that it enhances and moves you along through the story, which I think is an important role for a letterer. I would love to, at some point in time on the show, because it was great when we got to talk to an inker. I would love to talk to a letterer for the same reason, just because I don't have the background on comic creation, and I would love to just have that experience, because I think it'd be cool on there. But very cool for the Eisner Award nominees from DC. I'll be curious to see which ones win, and actually I want to go back now and look at all of the nominations across comics just to see what's out there. Very cool. Flashpoint, Jim. Let's talk a little of this. I am so convinced now that Batman is probably Bruce. I don't think that Batman is anybody else but Bruce. The reason why is, if you take a look at Dead Man and the Flying Graysons,
and
flip over that, isn't that Dick trapped behind the enemy lines? Will the Grayson family be able to help the resistance, or is this their final performance? That's gotta be Dick's family still alive, right?
Yeah, it's the Flying Graysons there.
So then going down to Batman, I know there's a Batman book in there where they're direct mention of the Wayne family. The only other person I think it could be is his dad. And I'm looking at the age of that character now. I don't know that I believe that that's who it's going to be. I do believe that's going to be Bruce, but I believe that circumstance have maybe changed, especially if they're referring to the Wayne family. Is Dad still alive? Mom still alive? I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe Bruce does die and it's some other member of the Wayne family.
Well, what if Thomas and Martha had another son, and it's not Bruce Wayne? And you think the one idea that popped in my head, I was thinking, is what if the bad guy didn't shoot Martha and and Thomas Wayne? He shot Bruce and killed the little boy. The parents live on, and then they have another kid, and Dad becomes the original Batman back in his day and age. His son takes over, and so we have somebody other than Bruce Wayne in the cowl, but it is a Wayne, and it is from the same thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of the things I like about these Flashpoint and these type of events where you can kind of tweak and have fun with the stories and the histories of the characters, and so I'm thinking now that it's not Dick Grayson, and I'm thinking it is a Wayne. Now, what Wayne? I don't know.
Now, Booster Gold number 46. Will Booster be able to stop Doomsday and help the Flash, or has his time come to an end? Doomsday versus Booster. How could Booster stop Doomsday? We've seen Booster not stop Doomsday before. It's interesting in a world without Superman. How do you stop Doomsday when he comes? Because that character would still potentially arrive. And obviously not potentially arrive. We're going to see that character arrive. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, I see a Booster. It was nice knowing you, because I don't see how he could do it unless he's got some really big, some big high-tech guns, or even that. I don't know.
Abin Sur and Sinestro. Now, Sinestro's respect for Abin Sur is something that it's going to be interesting to see play out here. Because it says, will Sinestro side with Abin Sur against the Guardians of Oa, or is all hope lost? So apparently we're going to see a lot of what we see out of the Guardians in the current series. Their tricks haven't changed much with this different universe. Abin Sur being alive, how will that change things? And does this mean that Sinestro will never, quote-unquote, turn? In the sense that he will remain a Green Lantern. Will this be the ascension of Sinestro as the greatest Green Lantern? Will we see that? Or will we see Abin Sur be that character? I don't know. I'm very curious. This is something I really dig about alternate universes. We get to see a different exploration now. Who will be, the headlining Green Lantern, and why? And what does that mean to the people surrounding them? Be interesting to see Sinestro remain, kind of a heroic figure, and to follow him along that way.
I got my money says this is still the same Sinestro story arc, but instead of Hal Jordan being there to accuse Sinestro, it's now on Abin Sur to be the person who either quote-unquote brings him to justice, or will Abin Sur, side with his longtime friend. Because when Hal went up against Sinestro, they didn't have a long history of close friendship.
Except if Abin Sur is going against the Guardians, if Abin Sur at this stage sees, the issues that they have, will that be enough where Sinestro, all of a sudden sees a comrade at arms? That one person who is seeing things because Sinestro's always, that's been one of his main issues, is that the fact that the Guardians have, I don't know, corruption's not really the right word, but their ego gets in the way a lot of times. And their methods get in the way a lot of times. And this letting go of emotion has gotten in the way. So what if he's got a buddy cop? And what if that buddy cop sees things the way he does? What is that going to mean? Will that keep him from drifting over to more extreme methods to do what he thinks is right? Because going on the fact that Sinestro's always thought that he was on the right in what he's been doing, what will happen if, and I'm just throwing out a potential possibility here, if Abin Sur is seeing things in a similar way of Sinestro, will that push Sinestro in a different path? Will that one event, Abin Sur not dying, be a thing that would keep Sinestro from becoming the Yellow Lantern that we know him as now? Because if that doesn't happen, he'll never go to court. He'll never become a Yellow Lantern. So how drastically that would change things. And is the Parallax entity inside the central battery in this universe? I don't know. And what would that be like?
Well, it should always be. Well, I would assume it's there. Because it's... The way I understand the current folklore in DCU now is before that whole action with Hal pulling out, it was always trapped in the Green Lantern battery, correct?
Right. But I'm saying this is a different universe. It's a divergent path. I agree with you in the sense that Parallax will be there. So what would that mean for them? I guess what I'm saying is one of the things I like about these teasers is even though they reveal certain things, the reveals actually lead to more questions than you had before. These are really well done teasers. They give you some information, but it's just a taste. And it's very well handled. This Batman Night of Vengeance by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. Who is the Joker? And what is his dark connection to the Wayne family? So I'm guessing we're not going to get our traditional Joker.
No, it doesn't look like it. And I'm going to say Alfred.
Why Alfred?
I'm just throwing that name out there.
Dark connection,
it's one of those
but it's a dark connection.
Throw it out there, and if it turns out right, I'll say, see, I was right all along. I have no idea.
Yeah, because this is dark connection to the Wayne family. I don't know. I honestly wouldn't be against that. What path would lead it? That what happened to their life that led it to that way? I don't know. I'm curious. Central City's greatest hero. It looks like it's going to be Captain Cold, or Citizen Cold in this case. Him going up against the rogues, like the Pied Piper. Will the Pied Piper not turn good, because of the fact that we've got a different person now? He never meets Wally, never, has those moments where he becomes a friend of his. And this would lead things down a very different path for these characters. I don't know. I'm excited to see what is different in Central City. We already talked about Flying Graysons. Deathstroke and the Curse of the Ravager versus Emperor Aquaman in issue number 2 of that series. Will Deathstroke be able to find his treasure with Aquaman standing in his way? And then if you scroll on up and take a look at Emperor Aquaman number 2, will his loss destroy the world? Now that's Mira, I'm guessing.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Which would lead to, because it looks like there's going to be a potential wedding between Aquaman and Wonder Woman to bring peace between those two races. Is that the way that it looked like in the teasers to you?
Oh, definitely. Definitely looked like we're going to get that's an Atlantean, Amazonian royal wedding kind of merger, which in a way makes sense and fits both of they're both a nobility base type of universe. Well, type of universe. So in the old, when you look at back in the ancient days, they constantly were doing those type of arranged marriages for peace. So I kind of like that. When I saw that, I was like, that kind of makes sense, especially given what it looks like with Wonder Woman's going to be not so much as the rescue and safety of mankind, but I think she's going to be doing a little bit more of that kind of Amazon's attack mentality, where it's okay, we can't trust the world of man. Let's strike first.
Well, will she trust him? Because in arranged marriage, one of the things about arranged marriage historically is they're not based on love, they're not based on respect, they're not based on trust. They can grow into that over time, but do they ever reach that same level? This isn't going to be Aquaman marrying Mira, and the two of them are coming from very from paths that looks like they are both mistrusting the world. Will that lead to each other, or will their combined efforts and their combined losses, because it looks like Wonder Woman's going to be going based on the death of Hippolyta. It's going to be a lot of what's her driving force is. So, and is this the Wonder Woman we're seeing in the current series? A lot of this is a lot of questions in this that I'm very excited to see where they go and what their relationship is like, because that in itself could be an intrigue. What is he doing behind the scenes that she doesn't know about? What's she doing behind the scenes that he doesn't know about? Or are they truly united? I don't know. And those are questions that, for me, have me excited. It's not that they're going to potentially be married. Are we going to see them as a married couple? Are we going to see what leads them to get married? I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions there. Frankenstein and the Creatures of the Unknown. Can our heroes find the cure to their afflictions, or will the monster hunter, Miranda Shreve, kill them before they get the chance? So, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I'm curious as can be on that one. I don't have a lot of speculation on it, though.
I tell you, this is one where I'm starting to get more and more curious about. It's curiouser and curiouser for me with more of these little teases and that we're getting about the Frankenstein and the Creatures of the Unknown. At first, I was like, okay, whatever. It was going to be. I was putting it in my head as being one of those I was going to push aside. But now I'm looking at this kind of as some Buffy action going on with vampire slaying and monster slaying. So. It's getting my attention, and I'm kind of curious about it.
One of my I will say this, I do have a certain speculation about it. Are these afflictions that we're looking to see in there, are they going to be coming as a result of whatever happened to Europe? Whatever because there's evidently something devastating that happens in Europe, and is this some form of warfare, some form of chemical warfare, some form of agent released due to that war? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it's written Jeff Lemire, so
yeah. So Hal Jordan, number 2. Will he be able to fly fast enough to escape his fate and defeat the Amazons? So we're going to see him as a pilot, and I am excited to see Highball going at it in this particular role. And again, look, looks like he's fighting monsters there when he's going up against the Amazons. So a 3-headed monster. And then Kid Flash, where is he and when? And can Hot Pursuit save him in time for Bart to help Barry? We're going to have 2 Barry Allens there.
Yeah, and the one is calling himself Hot Pursuit, and then you got Barry, and I thought that was kind of neat that we're just, definitely distinction. There's definite distinction between the two, and they're differentiating between them.
And I am taking it that there's going to be, and I could be very wrong on this, but I am taking it that we're getting 2 Barrys. Is that how you're reading that?
Yeah, definitely.
And will they have their revenge? Now, it looks like Plastic Man's a bad guy, right? But Animal Man's not? With this Legion of Doom number 2 by Adam Glass?
Yeah.
The villains have mounted a prison bake. Yeah, they're going to have a cake sale. They're going to cookies and little cakes and stuff like that. But it's evil cakes. They have glass shards in them. Now, one lone hero stands in the way. Will Animal Man be able to stop them, or will they have their revenge against Cyborg? Wow. I can't wait to see Cyborg. I know you're a huge Cyborg fan, so you got to be happy that this character's going to be getting the spotlight.
He's going to get some press and some, the front lines. So I'm hoping that's something that continues on through into the present day when the dust is settled. I hope we still get that really cool Cyborg.
Who is the mysterious leader of the Resistance that Lois Lane and the Resistance number 2? Wonder who that does. Do you have any speculation who that is?
See, I'm looking at the body frame, the framework, and I have no idea.
Arsenal?
It could be Arsenal.
Green Arrow?
Be. What?
Green Arrow? I know Cyborg's supposed to have a major role in the Resistance, so...
I don't know.
I don't know. Could it be Cyborg? I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
No, I don't think it's Cyborg.
No, because I think we've already seen him revealed in all this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He still looks very similar to what he looked before, and this guy doesn't have... It doesn't look... This one's using a gun in the one arm, and I'm trying to figure out what the other weapon is that's in his other arm, and... I don't know. It doesn't. It could be a bow, and if it was a bow, that would lead me to Ollie. But I'm also looking to see if I see the big goatee, and I don't see that. So there's some. Just looking at the shadowy images, it's definitely the person's got a gun in one hand with a scope and some hardware. So that could lead me to believe that it's Arsenal. But I don't know. Could Ollie be using guns instead of arrows?
The Outsider number 2. by James Robinson and Javi Fernandez with a cover by Kevin Nolan. I'm still taking that to be Metamorpho. I don't know why he's operating the way that he is. Could he have closer ties to Simon Stagg this time around? I don't know. But seeing him versus Black Adam is going to be interesting because I've always taken Metamorpho to be a very powerful character, in the sense with everything that he's able to do. But wow, to be I don't know, is he powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with Black Adam? And look at Black Adam's hand there. Is that a metal hand?
It looks like it.
So,
It looks like he's maybe got a cybernetic type of hand, and I don't know. I don't even know if that's our Black Adam or if there's been some changes in the universe as well. It could be something different about this Kondak leader that is, different than our guy. So I don't know. I'm curious. This is one of those where it's in the I am curious about what the story is category for me.
Who is behind Project Superman? Project Superman #2, plot by Scott Snyder, script by Lowell Francis, art and cover by Gene Ha. I love Gene Ha's art, so I'm very excited for this one. Now, who is that? Got Kal-El, right?
I'm wondering if this is Connor. They're dealing a clone. That there isn't a Superman. That either he didn't survive through the process, or and these are just clone work of him. But that's an awful young character,
right? Whatever's happening to these characters, though, this character, it's coming from Kal-El, though, right? Whether he's alive or dead.
Correct.
Okay, so I am in agreement. I don't think Clark's going to be dead. Well, he'll be Kal-El because we'll never meet the Kents, right?
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Or if he does, will he meet him during this on some level? I don't know how that would happen. Secret 7. Other than the shades in there, now Amethyst. Who killed the first 7, and can Amethyst stop them from killing the new Secret 7? Why is there a Secret 7? Are they good guys or bad guys? Ooh.
Yeah. It's what's this? And this is one where I don't even really know who Amethyst is. I don't have any history with her, so I'm wondering where this is going to go.
And you don't know Shade the Changing Man either, do you?
Not really, no.
That's a book that's coming out this month. There is a Shade omnibus, I believe it is, that's solicited this month as well. That was another one. There's a Shade hardcover, and it's the classic Shade stories. So, I don't know. And art, Peter Milligan is the writer, but art by George Perez and Scott Koblish with a cover by George Perez. I mean, that's on the art alone. But the writing, Peter Milligan writing, you can't go wrong there. And then, how many must die to avenge Queen Hippolyta's death and satiate Diana's fury? This could be the Diana we're currently reading.
It could be, but I don't think so. I think this is all has to do with the changeover, and I think I'm actually kind of thinking that maybe the Diana we're reading now isn't affected by the isn't affected by Flashpoint. There's something else dealing with that.
See, and I'm going to go the other end and say that I think it is affected by Flashpoint. I think this issue, the most recent issue, with her waking up and choosing, might lead directly into this. I don't know, and I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong on that. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with Wonder Woman, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. The world of Flashpoint #2. Why is Tracy 13 the most important girl in the world? Does she have the strength to do what must be done? What is it she has to do? I don't know.
Yeah, this is a magic thing. So, again, cool story arc.
Now, Jeff Johns did say in a WonderCon interview, or it was an interview on Newsarama. I don't know if it was from WonderCon or if it was an interview that Newsarama conducted. So it's on Newsarama because there's a Flashpoint interview on there. So it might be theirs directly. So I apologize on that. He made mention during that interview that the Flashpoint series, the actual Flashpoint miniseries, is meant to be a beginning, middle, and ending. That is the main event. These other series that are out there are a chance for creators to tell complete stories in each miniseries, beginning, middle, and ending, in the Flashpoint world. So you do not have to read those in order to understand the Flashpoint story. You can just read the Flashpoint mini. I think that's cool. Because to me, I'm a big fan of, you're saying we're only going to be doing this world for, quote unquote, a certain amount of time. So this is a great opportunity to kind of tell beginning, middle, and endings. And then these characters, obviously, there's some opportunities for some of them to continue on post-Flashpoint, depending how the series wraps up. I like that. I actually prefer that to know that I'm going to be able to read, because I'm actually going to pick up all the minis, because I'm excited for that. But I like that they've given people the opportunity to pick and choose between them based on interest. I think that's just a better way to do it.
Amen. Amen. We saw with Blackest Night how they did that, and it's a great way to tell the story. You get that, boom, if you only want to pick up the one, fine. But then once you want to just expand out and open up the horizons and try these other characters that I have no idea who they are, I have very little dealings with them, I'm happy for that. I'm excited for that. This Tracy 13, I kind of know her. I've read a couple stories.
Titans.
There's been a couple
you would have read her in
Magic
Teen
stuff.
Titans with Blue Beetle. Remember she was dating Blue
Right.
Beetle?
Yeah. So I know of her and I've dealt with her, but I'm not a expert on her. I couldn't sit there and tell you all about her. So, but this is I know enough about her that I'm looking forward to seeing this little change of it. Maybe this is going to be a little bit different than what I'm used to. So,
well, I think it's definitely going to be different than what we're both used to with the character. I think it's a chance to really do something fun with her. Well, and they also had that backup story with the 3 characters, the 3 magic characters. Remember? Then she was a
Right.
part of that as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, very cool character.
now, here's my question for you. Looking at this image, it kind of, to me, she looks a little bit Raven-esque. Could Raven be calling herself Tracy 13?
I think that's going to actually genuinely be Tracy 13.
Okay.
I don't think that's a throwaway. Yeah, I definitely think that's Tracy 13. Because Jeff Johns mentioned in one of the interviews that there's going to be a female breakout character in this that people aren't going to expect. And I wonder if that is Tracy 13.
Could be.
So, because, he referenced Mira, how she was like the breakout character of Blackest Night. He was mentioned, I don't know if it's going to be Tracy 13. We'll see.
It would probably make sense.
Yeah, but I'm just guessing there. I don't know. The more we know about this, the more excited I am. And I love speculating on this because the teasers they're vague enough that I still don't feel like I know what's going on. Because we don't know how this world got this way and what is the goal to get it back. Like, what would be the driving force? Because you figure Barry and Bart and Booster would be the only people that would know that this is off, right?
It should be. They should be. Everybody else should see it as normal, the normal universe. This is how it's always been.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Very cool event. I'm looking this is going to be a cool year.
Yeah.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
Jim, I want to wrap up because we've got a couple interviews from C2E2 that I want to make sure get on this episode. But I want to wrap up our current comic discussion with the Reign of Doomsday Superman Batman Annual number 5. I don't know. I didn't look and see what the creative team was going to be. It kind of makes sense that it's James Robinson doing the writing on this one because of the fact that he was part of that cliffhanger in Justice League of America. So we're going to actually see where the story diverted to the Eclipso and this cyborg Superman both of them handled by him, which is interesting. Now, cyborg Superman taking over the satellite was something that was very cool because it brought up, to me, a lot of what's really going on here with Doomsday. Are these characters really dead, or is something else going on? And I think this issue really answers a lot of those questions, at least it did for me. What do you think Doomsday's doing?
I still don't have the total endgame of Doomsday, but it's definitely... It's a collection going on with Krypton and with Kryptonian. It's not just the old Doomsday, montage. I think there's something else pulling and calling the shots on this one. And I don't know. There's still a lot of just vagueness going on. Well, I don't want to even say vagueness. It's the mystery is still unfolding. But there's still the unknown.
Except, like Cyborg Superman and Steel and Eradicator, I don't think those all point to necessarily... Well, I mean, obviously there's a relationship between Eradicator and Kryptonian, and Cyborg Superman because of the DNA, but the actual cyborg part seems to be, he's assimilating, like, the armor of Steel, which has nothing to do with Kryptonian. That was something created by John Henry Irons. He's assimilating a lot of these, and I'm using the term, I don't think assimilating, it's the Borg reference, I don't think is a wrong thing to take here, except I think in the way that he's assimilating them, especially with what happens to Cyborg Superman in this, I think those elements are becoming a part of Doomsday. And in order for these characters to come back, they have to be ripped out of Doomsday? Is that how you're taking this, or am I off?
No, I'm definitely taking that, the same way. Doomsday is pulling the character traits, powers, the whatnot behind the character that he's fighting and making it his own. And that's part of the whole mystery as to where this is coming from, the why it's happening, the just the whole behind its creation. And if you look at the end of this issue where they're going to the void location that was where the new Krypton was, that's kind of also, that's why I'm thinking the connection somehow with Krypton. Maybe something Zod had planned or was doing. Maybe something to do with the monster that was in the Phantom Zone. There's, some connection to what was the Kryptonian society got released. And that, fused with maybe Doomsday. And it's now trying to, the pieces of anything connected to that it can connect either roughly or directly with Kryptonian, it's taking and capturing. And it's sending out Doomsday to be its collection agency. So Doomsday is the collector for blank. I don't know what the blank is yet. I don't know what this unknown entity that's pulling the shots and controlling Doomsday is.
Now, St. Walker, we're learning something new here about him. Because I think we've been under the impression all along that he drew power from a Green Lantern. But we're seeing here that he is able to increase his power by tapping into Starman's power, which was an interesting twist from him. And I wonder if depending on what hero he's tapping into or what power source he's tapping into, if that changes his abilities or not. A lot of questions that I have with that character, and I don't need to know right now. I'm liking the mystery of him. I think his addition to the Justice League is going to be a good one because I care. I want to know more about the Blue Lantern. A lot of when we were at C2E2, a lot of the panels where people were saying, okay, you're doing a Red Lantern book, but I'm interested in knowing about the Indigos. I'm interested in knowing about the Blue Lanterns and all that. This is a good way to say, okay, we put a Blue Lantern on the Justice League. This is an opportunity to explore the Blue Lanterns through their relationship with the Justice League. We don't have to start a new title. You want to know more about Blue Lanterns, go over to Justice League. And you're going to learn about St. Walker over there and what his powers are and how they work. This is a cool way to do this. There's room to take some of these characters and put them in other titles. I'm not saying you need to put... I'm not necessarily saying that I want to see a lantern in every book or anything like that. I don't want that. But there's a Red Lantern book. We're going to learn more about the Blue Lanterns here. There's an opportunity to do some things with Indigos, maybe somewhere else. This is how you should be branching out these characters. You don't need to always launch another title. And
Amen.
I like this. This is cool because seeing him interact with the Justice League, because they don't know him either, we're kind of in there with the Justice League learning about him, and this is cool.
Yeah, you think about it. If he is the Lantern of Hope, if that's his his power base, his mantra, being with these different heroes, will bring out something, even more to it. Because if he's able to tap into the hope that is inside the heroes, what other emotions will he be able to tap into? Will there be other stuff that comes out of this if he's, if him and Superman are side by side fighting? Superman's that ever vigilant. He is in himself a ambassador of hope and a character that inspires great hope in people. I would think that St. Walker is going to be able to pull some massive energy and massive just strength from Superman, because he's a guy who doesn't give up, who doesn't have those moments of weakness. And even Starman here has his doubt, has his moments of weakness, but there's still that underlining hero in him, that's underlining nature, and that's what St. Walker is able to pull from. And I think that's cool if you even get going the other way. Will he be able to affect other heroes who maybe are a little bit down? Maybe like, I don't know if we can beat it, all will be well, kind of supercharging those heroes. I'd like to see if that happens.
One of the cooler parts of the Sinestro Corps War was the one shot, we talked about it way back when, of Cyborg Superman. We got to see how much he wants to die and why. This issue, it's one of the things I really love about this. Talk about doing homework. It goes back to one of those cool factors, and it expands upon it and shows us why, yes, he still wants to die, and that is something that drives him, a major driving force, but also what keeps him living. Why does he keep, rebuilding himself? Why does he wind up back in this spot again? And we're seeing it right here where he's like, it's his ego, his need to, he can't accept being defeated by Doomsday. He won't let himself be defeated by Doomsday. It's not just Doomsday, though. It's any of his opponents. That's what keeps him coming back. And ultimately, as he caught him in a circle where he'll never ultimately find peace because, if someone defeats him, it will bring him back. It will force him to keep fighting his way back to get the one-up. So he's kind of his own worst enemy that you feel bad for him because he wants it just all over. But yet it's this personality quirk, this flaw in him, this unwillingness to let himself be defeated that keeps bringing him back. Very interesting character. And it's funny, after all this time, from his emergence in Death and Return of Superman, that this character still remains untapped. There's more to do with him. You would think by now that they've kind of exhausted him, and they just haven't. They just keep finding ways to make him interesting and compelling, and this is a great... And you got to use him in this capacity. Let him be off camera for a while, then when you bring him back, show us something new with him. Take him to a different level. This arc is certainly doing that with him.
Again, he's that character that I want more of him, but as you're talking about how, you have him off for a little bit and you bring him back, I'm in complete agreement with you on that. But whenever I see him, I always sit there and say, man, I wish they could have done more with this guy. Let's keep him around. But it is part of this, the pulling in, when they're pulling him in, why they're pulling him in, the usage of him when he's in. He's just this great character to just add on. I love the character, but right now I wouldn't want a Cyborg Superman series. I wouldn't want the constant thing of him. I like this, bring him in, bam, use him, we get some cool stuff, and then he disappears for a little bit. And he's a weird character in that normally when I get behind a character, I get behind him, and I want more. I want it to be a monthly. I want it to be a constant more information. Let's dive in depth into what this guy is thinking. But with him, I'm loving his usage, but I still... It's a weird relationship I have with this guy.
Batman and Supergirl, Dick Grayson and Supergirl. Some of my favorite moments in this issue were the two of them, because we've seen a great relationship developing between them, a brother-sister relationship there. How he wants to protect her, he wants to bring her back, doesn't quite know what's going on. Where did this dark Supergirl come from? But I love that the detective in Dick Grayson has recognized that she, unlike other times we've seen dark Supergirl, this isn't evil. She saved my life. And the reason why she's Dark Supergirl right now, and what it's turned out in this issue, is because of the great loss and not being able to deal with it. The hole in her heart has led her down this path, and to the point where it's killing her. And the only way for her to reemerge is to face that, to forgive herself, and to be able to find a new purpose, a new hope in herself. And I didn't see this being the issue where we would see resolution to all that. I really liked how this played out because it was a surprise for me. When I started seeing all the focus on her, I'm like, are we going to see this here? Is this where it's going to happen? The anticipation for this, because I did not see this coming. Did you?
Oh, God, no. And I was just completely shocked because we took the events that were going on in JLA right into here, and then the full resolution. I was like, wow, this is cool. This is a cool story. And I picked up this annual just, for the Reign of Doomsday stuff. I didn't get it because thinking that it would be a JLA story, kind of playing out in there. And when you're talking about just her getting behind what is causing this, I love the fact that they pulled in Dr. Fate, but he wasn't there for magic. He was there because he's a psychologist. He's a psychiatrist. And, just kind of that analyzing her and just getting to her root of her problem. I thought that was a cool usage of a hero, and it wasn't even him. It was a hologram of him.
Well, I love the holograms, the various holograms. Dr. Midnight showing up. I thought it was really great. We went through all these different potential holograms of ways to correct what's going on with her. And it would make sense of the satellite. Hey, what are we going to do if these heroes aren't available to us? Can we create a computerized version of them to hopefully in the battlefield be able to help our heroes to get them back on the field faster if we've got a major threat? This is wonderful technology. And I've always been a big fan, like Voyager. They had the hologram medical officer in Voyager, and I always dug that character. And Star Trek Online actually has the hologram characters in there as well, the hologram medical officers and that type of thing. I'm a big fan of that concept because the technology, I always want to feel like the Justice League satellite has the cutting edge technology, stuff you wouldn't see on Earth. You're using Bruce Wayne's money, you're using, your access to Star Labs, access to all these different places. Why wouldn't you be able to combine all that and form something new, something unique, and take it to it? We've seen in JSA All-Stars, a hologram being there. So this is technology now that is a part of the DC Universe lore. And seeing it used in this capacity to bring these heroes into the battlefield, I thought was great. I thought it was just a really well done moment. And to see this Supergirl resolution, I thought it was great because it was happening in the middle of this enormous fight where we were learning that you see Doomsday reforming himself, after he's been blasted in the face. And did you notice as Doomsday was reforming himself, Cyborg Superman was getting weaker?
Yeah. He started pulling from Cyborg Superman, and Cyborg Superman lost his connection to the satellite, and then we see that Doomsday's face is on the outside of the satellite. I thought that was just a great flow through, and just a great evolution of what Doomsday was pulling into, how the what appeared to be the defeat of Cyborg Superman, or the imminent defeat of Cyborg Superman. I was like, oh, this is cool.
And I love these moments where he's saying, I can't reform myself, repair myself now. If he rips me apart, will I die finally? It's what I've wanted for so long, and yet now I wonder. Is this what Kal-El saw before his final moments? A better version of his own greatness? Is this my fate, my end, my death? And here's the problem. Is that why Doomsday was able to take down Kal-El? Are we learning now that Doomsday's always been able to do this, and we just didn't know it? Interesting. It's interesting to me, how long has this been a part of the character? Is this evolution of him something we're going to continue to see? It's made Doomsday compelling again.
Oh, definitely a compelling villain. I always thought he was a pretty cool villain there, but it's one of those things where his power levels and the usage, I was like, I didn't think there was much you could do with him other than you had this great epic battle, and he was perfect usage for it, and then beyond that I was like, I can't see him keep coming back like with Lex Luthor or even with Cyborg now. It's I never saw that in Doomsday. Well, seeing this little evolution of him, seeing that Doomsday may actually have a personality underneath there, or there could just be, this may not be the real Doomsday, this may be something else, or could be this whole other entity involved with this that I don't know yet. So there's so much more going on that Doomsday is a pretty cool character now.
I love this bit with Kara at the end where she bursts through. This is just what I need. The last piece of curing whatever it was in myself that was poisoning me. No doubt, no sorrow. I've been hoping for this, dreaming of the day where I'd get another crack at you. Just such a great moment. Just me, Supergirl. I'm like, ugh, yes, I have grown to be such a big fan of this character, and I was so glad that he didn't stretch out the dark Supergirl too long. You can use that in a pocket, and it works. But to me, what's intriguing about her on the Justice League is seeing Supergirl there. And when I say, in the same big letters that we're seeing it here, we're seeing the strength of the character. We're seeing why she is one of the top tier characters in the DC Universe. Supergirl has a rich, long history in the DC Universe. Granted, this Supergirl, I know she's the new version that was created during Superman and Batman. Yeah, that's true. But it's an iconic character concept. And, this girl is supposed to have more powers than Superman. More power, in his power, the power set of hers. She's supposed to be an edge up from him. I want to see these moments from her. I want to see her maturing, her continued growth. Eigel and Gates did a great job with this, with her in her series. I want to see that continue. This is continuing here. This is cool.
Now, the final bringing down or final victory of Doomsday. The one thing that I was questioning about. Now, Cyborg Superman, he's shooting at Kara, but it's Batman who throws off the aim, correct? That's how you read it?
No, I think it was... Boy, I don't know. It says, okay, no, not her, no. Yeah, because he couldn't handle her beating Doomsday over him. It's the ego again. So yeah, you're right, he was shooting right at her.
Okay. Yeah, so it's, Batman saves her, but that gives Doomsday that one moment of hesitation where she's not pounding on him to fight back and actually turn the tide.
Yeah, and then ultimately vanish.
Yeah.
The same way we've seen him in the past with these other characters. And taking her with him. I'm anxious for the Superboy issue.
Oh, God, yeah. I want to see where this goes and what happens there. And here's the question. Now, you said earlier, you see it as a brother-sister type of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I would agree with you 100%, but part of me is just wondering, is there something more there? Is Dick feeling something more?
Her age, dude, they're not going there.
You don't think they will?
Think of how young she is.
Is she really that young, though?
Yes.
She has the appearance of that age, but it was the whole, she's technically 4 years older than Clark.
Well, because of the traveling and all that, but she's still a teenage girl, dude. I mean, they've established that.
Oh, okay.
They're not establishing her as being like a legal adult or anything like that. They aren't going there with this kid. I don't read it that way at all. Okay. I do read it like, when I say something more, I think that we're developing a very strong brother-sister bond, a new kind of world's finest, the kind of relationship that you would expect from Batman and Superman, where we look at them as being brothers.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Bruce and Clark. Right. I think we're seeing a relationship forming here between these two, which I think will be different and unique because we've got a male and female. I don't see this being a romantic relationship between the two of them.
And honestly, I agree with you, but it's just there's always just moments when he's just like, no. You see the panic. I feel the panic, and I can hear it. That inner voice when I'm reading it. That I'm like, is it beyond something beyond just that brother sister thing? Just because of the level of panic and terror that he has, that something's happening to her.
But wouldn't you see him having that same panic and terror if it was Tim Drake?
Yeah, okay, I get your point.
I'm saying back when Tim Drake, especially when Tim Drake was that age, because I'm taking that Tim's a little older than her. I don't know, or they might be in the same age range, but I would have if this was the same battle going on and you took out Supergirl and put in Tim Drake. I do think there's a natural instinct when you're a male, and I've got girls who are a friend of mine that I work with at my job and that type of thing, where because they're a female, and I know it's a double standard and all that, but I think you would react differently to a female who's a very close friend or like a sister to you or that type of thing. I don't have a sister, but I have girls who are friends of mine that are like sisters to me, if that makes sense. And I see why he would have a different... So I guess I will correct myself a little bit and go a little in the direction where you're talking about. You would have a little different reaction because it's a female, but yet I do link it a little bit more to Tim Drake than I do Barbara Gordon.
Right.
Or Starfire. I don't see it heading down that path. Maybe when she gets older, I don't know. I don't know that I need it to go there. But I know what you're saying, like you could feel something more there. I think her age is a big deterrent to that. I think we're going to see a brother-sister relationship out of this and see that continue.
And I'm cool with that. And to be honest, I understand what you're saying because, I got my sister, and I could see just reaction. And just like you said, I've got friends that are females who are like sisters. So yeah, I see, I get what you're saying, and it was just something that was just nagging in the back of my head that I wanted a second opinion on. But I do,
and I am going to correct myself a little bit there. I do think it does look maybe slightly different than it would look with Tim Drake because it's a female. And I'm not saying that to be, to have a double standard or anything like that. I do think that you get that way with certain characters. Actually, it's funny talking about female characters. We had one of our listeners, and I apologize for not having her name right now. You remember when we were talking about the Wonder Woman costume and you mentioned that the new one looks more functional? Yeah. She did make a good point about the straps and everything, how the top part of her outfit was certainly a lot more functional now with all the straps. So she has a point there. I think I was talking about just the whole outfit look, and in general, though, I don't know that I've ever looked at Diana's outfit, with the exception of the bracelets, as being functional. And that was the point I was trying to make with the Wonder Woman costume. I've never looked at the outfit and thought that was... talking about Steel. Like, Steel's outfit is functional. Batman's outfit, there's armor in there, there's functional, with the utility belt. I've never looked at Wonder Woman's outfit as being, other than the lasso and the bracelets and the tiara, which she throws, as being functional. So that's what the point I was trying to make in, as far as... I've never had that experience with it. And I don't think the new outfit has in any way made me go, geez, that's more functional than I thought that the other outfit was. Yet her point, from a female perspective, makes a whole lot of sense to me. Having the straps on there and the coat and those type of things does make the whole thing a lot more functional if somebody's moving around in battle. But I think superhero costumes in general, we have to have a certain sense of disbelief to them, because some of them are, clearly they're they look painted on and they work well because artists are able to adjust them to the body and adjust the body to the look that you're trying to achieve. You can't do that in real life. I think it's one of the things with the Wonder Woman TV series pilot they're doing right now. They've had to adjust that outfit. They've done it twice now, where it's a different look than the original preview image that we saw. Did you see the updated version of it?
No, I haven't.
When they shot the actual, they've shown it, they changed the color of the pants a little bit, and they've added like stars on the side and stuff like that. It's a little bit closer to like a hybrid between the two outfits.
Oh, okay, cool.
Than before. But I think that's something that I think Hollywood always has to fight with that with superhero costumes, that what works on a comic book page, because artists are able to say, hey, his legs look weird in this. Let me just change the way his legs are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the same thing with the female characters. You can make outfits work and look cool in comics in a way that you can't alter real people that way. So that's why
you could. It's just, a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's true too. One more thing back to this issue, and then we can kind of wrap up with this. Now, the far side of the sun and the sad void where New Krypton once was, he's going to where, and why, to where New Krypton once was. Why is he going there? Do you think that's a throwaway?
Oh, God, no. That's why I was thinking he's not the regular Doomsday that we know. He is a tool being used by something. He is the retriever for somebody, whether it's, I don't know what, I don't know who, and there's some unknown entity right now that's using Doomsday or using this creature that is taking the form of Doomsday, because I still don't know if 100% if this is the same Doomsday we've seen all along, or if this is a change, and I don't know where it's coming from or why it's coming. So I think we're going to get a little bit more answers in Superboy, and then we'll get the final pieces in Action Comics 900.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where they're going with this. It is one of those things where I'm very curious for next week to see that issue of Superboy. It's a story that, as it's grown, I'm getting more interested in the mystery of it. I don't know if I'm a fan of the idea of there being someone pulling his strings, or this actually being Doomsday. Although somebody pulling his strings might add to what changes happen to Doomsday. I think this is Doomsday, but I think that there is an evolution of Doomsday, which could be an outside source like you're referring to. I might be wrong on that though too. So who knows?
Yeah, it's the unknown, and it's part of the unknown that's cool on the story, in that we don't have everything, we don't have all the information, and I want to find this out. Now, when everything's said and done in Reign of Doomsday, and there's still questions left to be answered, I'll be miffed. But as it's going through the piece, as we're getting more, a little bit more tidbits here, a little bit more tidbits here, I'm enjoying how it's playing out and how it's, the story is actually unfolding.
Will you be miffed if we don't know everything by the end of it?
There's some stuff probably could be a mystery, but I really do want to know if this is Doomsday. If this is Doomsday, or if this is, something that looks like Doom. There's some stuff I have to know. Like, I have to know, is this Doomsday? Now, I don't really need to know how he came back after his last defeat or where he came through, but I do need to know if this is Doomsday, if this is the actual true beast that initially beat Superman, or if there's something else out there.
I would agree with that. I would like to know who this is by the end of it. I guess I was always taking it to be Doomsday, but you've posed an interesting question. Is it really Doomsday? I don't know. So it's kind of cool. Cool little event so far.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Once again, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Just a reminder, Flashpoint number 2, $3.99 regularly, 40% off, only $2.39. The 16 minis that are coming out, great deal, $2.99 regularly, 40% off, only $1.79. Those are coming with those free promo pins. So if you're looking to collect those, this is the best way to do it. Definitely check out DCBService.com for that pre-order. Remember to check out Summit City Comic Con at SummitCityComicCon.com, and over at InStockTrades.com, American Vampire Hardcover Volume 1, Stephen King, Scott Snyder, $24.99 regularly, 38% off, only $15.49. This series is amazing, so definitely check it out. Remember, orders of $50 $10 or more from InStockTrades.com, free shipping. Also, make sure to check out our show notes. We have a lot of links to our friends at Sequart. So definitely make sure to check those out, click on them. You can also go to our website and get the links directly from there in the show notes. So make sure to check out the work that's going on over at Sequart as well. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be doing more comic chat. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that we didn't get to on this episode. One in particular I'd like to talk about, Jamal Igle is doing the artwork on Zatanna. And we haven't talked about Zatanna in ages, so for sure I want to talk about Zatanna next week. Because I think it's a very cool book, and his artwork kicked it up a notch for me. Something I was already enjoying, but kicked it up a notch for me. And we have a whole bunch of other stuff that I definitely want to get to as well, so because there's a ton of books that are going to be released this week. I want to talk more of this Green Lantern event that's going on. So we'll see what we'll talk about next week. We'll pick our favorites and chat about them. We will see everyone next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thenengard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see.